In a world suddenly plunged into chaos, a brutal apocalypse unleashes bloodthirsty zombies across the globe. Amid the carnage, our protagonist, Ye Jongming, finds himself completely out of place in this twisted, nightmarish reality. For years, he had anticipated the collapse of civilization, but he never imagined meeting his end at the hands of his own teammates. Let's rewind to 10 years earlier when a cataclysmic event reshaped the world. 90% of humanity had transformed into bloodthirsty mutants, rapidly spreading their infection. As the situation grew dire, mysterious wheels descended from the sky, and soon, humans discovered crystals within zombies' heads. These crystals could be used to spin the wheels, extracting various resources, including weapons, genetic enhancements, and even supernatural abilities. Desperate to survive, humanity fought relentlessly for these wheels, turning the world into a brutal survival game. Jong chose to comply with this new reality, sacrificing his principles to stay alive. After a decade of grueling training, he finally earned his place on an elite monster-fighting team, believing his hard work would lead to a better future. But instead, he was betrayed and killed by his own teammate. Just as he thought it was all over, he woke up next to Bea, a girl who had died long ago, in the very house he had lived in before the apocalypse, naked and disoriented. Realizing it was September 10, 2220, the day before the apocalypse began, Jong is flooded with memories of the monstrous future awaiting him. As the horror of reliving the nightmare sets in, a spark of determination ignites within him. Recalling the 10 years of survival skills and combat experience he had acquired, he sees this rebirth as a chance to rewrite his fate. With newfound purpose and strategy, he vows to navigate the impending chaos and change his destiny. The story of Ye Jongming begins anew, fueled by vengeance and a fierce will to survive. Ignoring the girl in the bed who asks where he's going, Jong dresses quickly. He yanks open a drawer, staring at the inheritance his parents left him, a luxury card he had never used in his previous life. But with the apocalypse looming, he knows money will soon be worthless, and he needs to use it now. Feeling snubbed, the girl raises her voice, demanding answers. Jong doesn't hold back, bluntly telling her he knows about her affair with Chin Jun. Her face flushes with embarrassment and guilt, and she falls silent, unable to meet his eyes. In his last life, when the apocalypse erupted, he did everything to protect her but was betrayed in return. She had chosen to rely on Chin Jun, leaving him behind. Now, she claims he has no right to ridicule her and Chin Jun, accusing him of being jealous of Jun's looks and strength, and calling him a clown. Despite their past, Jong gives Shai one last warning. Chin Jun isn't someone she can trust. He knows that telling her Jun would sell her for merely 3 cans of food won't change her mind, so he doesn't bother. Deciding not to waste more time on her, he focuses on preparing medicine, food, and equipment. Meanwhile, she keeps shouting that she was the one who abandoned him, insisting he isn't leaving her, she chose to leave him first. The scene shifts to a taxi, where Jong thrusts a pile of cash at the driver, demanding a speedy trip to the nearest hospital. He swiftly gathers a stack of medicines at the hospital, stuffing them into a bag, knowing these supplies will be rare and incredibly valuable in the coming apocalypse. As he leaves the hospital, a woman accuses him of being an intruder and stealing. He says the money for the medicines is on the counter, adding that he has no time for further clarification because people will only believe him once they face the impending danger. He then hurries to an outdoor gear shop, methodically purchasing various essential tools and gearing up from head to toe. Just as he's about to finalize his payment, he notices a machete on the weapons counter that resembles one he used in his past life. Without hesitation, he decides to buy it for 10 times the price, confident it will be invaluable. He leaves the shop confidently, unaware that the shopkeeper was secretly pleased, having duped him into paying 10 times the item's actual value. But the fool was oblivious to the looming danger ahead. After gathering everything he needs, Jong hops into a taxi. The driver, enticed by the money, speeds off, racing toward Heyday Mansion just a short distance away. Jong recalls from memory that the Apocalypse Wheel, also known as the Trade Wheel, the sole source of resources for survivors, should be located there. He needs to act quickly to secure the most vital equipment and special abilities it offers. Suddenly, it hits him, the Apocalypse Wheel, the sole source of survival resources like water, food, equipment, and even special abilities, could only be obtained by spinning that wheel. He needs to be the first to reach it. According to his memory, the first Apocalypse Wheel should be near Heyday Mansion. But the taxi is stopped at the entrance to the high-end area. Undeterred, Jong instructs the driver to force their way through, promising to cover any damages. The driver complies, charging ahead, while alarmed policemen call for reinforcements. The car soon arrives at a desolate area and stops. Before getting out, Jong suggests the taxi driver leave the area, advising him to head to places with fewer people afterward. As Jong steps out, guards quickly apprehend him. Noticing his calm demeanor, one guard mentions that a taxi had smashed through their guardrails, accusing him of trying to flee. The policeman warns Jong not to act dumb, but despite the situation, he remains composed. Just as the policeman is about to ask a question, a massive rumbling sound grows louder, and everyone instinctively looks up to the sky. Before he could respond, a colossal, era-defying space battleship appeared, causing the policeman's anger to turn into sheer terror. Jong felt a cold sweat break out as the scene eerily mirrored what had happened 10 years ago. He wondered why the creator had abandoned the wheel and thrust humanity into chaos. Determined to change his fate, Jong seized the chance to grow stronger and retaliate. As the space battleship drew closer, people, oblivious to the impending danger, kept snapping photos to share online. Jong knew better. He could sense that an attack was imminent. Taking advantage of the situation, he turned and sprinted away, using his martial arts skills to move swiftly. He remembered that the attack would last 5 minutes, during which the world would plunge into hell. Reaching the door of a nearby villa, he rang the doorbell, pretending to be a delivery man. He recalled that the first wave of apocalyptic wheels would soon descend after the battleship ceased its assault. As the electric gate buzzed open, he slipped inside without hesitation. The woman who answered the door, undeniably charming but suspicious, insisted he wasn't a delivery man and demanded to know his intentions. She threatened to call the police, but Jong ignored her, knowing she lacked combat skills and was unaware of the looming threat. Just as she was about to protest further, a loud explosion erupted outside, followed by terrified screams. Jong's stomach tightened as he saw the massive space battleship releasing a fleet of giant vessels that collided with cars and buildings. Curious onlookers moved closer, oblivious to the danger, only to be enveloped by a green mist that emerged from the vessels. Within seconds, those caught in the fog transformed into terrifying undead creatures. One man tried to save a friend, but it was too late. The friend had already become a merciless zombie, attacking him without hesitation. To Jong, who had survived the apocalypse, the chaos outside was familiar. The woman, however, was visibly shaken, her eyes wide with fear. She demanded he leave immediately, clearly unsure of his intentions. Unfazed by her panic, Jong noticed a strange glimmer coming from the kitchen. He rushed toward it and found a massive gold wheel that had mysteriously appeared. Curious and anxious, the woman followed him into the kitchen, her eyes widening at the sight of the enormous wheel. At the center of the wheel was a gray crystal, indicating it was a rank 1 crystal wheel. Jong felt a wave of satisfaction. Even a rank 1 wheel could offer valuable rewards. The woman, however, was skeptical, questioning how such a thing could appear out of nowhere. Jong paid no mind to her doubts and focused on the wheel's contents. He spotted a strengthening drug that could enhance a person's strength 2 or 3-fold, but there was a problem. He had no crystals to activate the wheel. Upon closer inspection, he noticed that, unlike typical level 1 wheels requiring 5 crystals, this one needed 7, suggesting it held something even more valuable. After another look, Jong saw the prize, a lucky card. The woman, puzzled by his mutterings, asked what he was talking about. He explained that a lucky card could enhance a person's unique abilities, such as boosting physical strength or granting a companion beast. Jong wondered why the woman hadn't turned into a zombie yet. Perhaps she had some resistance to the poison. He began to consider her as a potential ally in the future. The woman remained unconvinced, still eyeing him suspiciously. Jong pointed out that the screaming outside had suddenly stopped. Her eyes widened with realization that something terrible must have happened. Ignoring the danger, she decided to step outside to investigate. Jong knew this was a fatal mistake. The silence meant that most of the screaming humans had already transformed into mutants and could no longer cry out. As she cracked open the door, an undead creature lunged at her. She stumbled back, struggling to fend off the snarling monster. Just as it seemed she was doomed, a flash of light sliced through the air, and the undead's head rolled away. The woman looked up to see Jong standing over her, his machete gleaming with fresh blood. He had saved her just in time. Jong bent down and pulled a crystal from the monster's head. The woman stared at it, realizing it resembled the one on the mysterious wheel in the kitchen. 2 more undead creatures charged toward the open door. Before she could fully process what had happened, she screamed a warning. Jong spun around, facing the 2 undead with swift precision. With a single fluid motion, he slashed, taking both creatures down in a deadly strike. The woman watched in shock, her heart racing as she witnessed his lethal efficiency. He had seemed ordinary to her before, but now she saw his brutal effectiveness against the mutants, leaving her speechless. In her shock, the woman asked for his name. After he introduced himself, he extended a hand to help her up and asked for her name in return. When she answered, Zhong's eyes widened in disbelief. She was Mushin Fei, the renowned NSTAR expert from his past life, a legendary figure known for facing entire divine armies single-handedly. Yet here she was, a delicate girl far from the mighty existence he had once known. Still shaken by his reaction, Mushin pressed him for answers about what was happening outside. Zhong didn't hesitate and bluntly informed her that Earth had been invaded. He explained that most people had already turned into zombies. While he didn't yet know who was behind the invasion, he mentioned that a few people around the world, like the two of them, hadn't been infected. He also revealed that he had been collecting crystals from the heads of the undead, showing her the tiny, shimmering objects that were crucial for survival in this new world. After hearing his detailed explanation, she grasped the gravity of the situation and suggested they seek help from the government or military. He shook his head, explaining that these entities likely collapsed within minutes of the attack. As far as he could tell, the entire Earth had become a playground for the undead. His mind raced with calculations. If Shin had been an NSTAR expert in her past life, she must have had some extraordinary traits that were still hidden. He needed an assistant, and she seemed like the perfect candidate. He decided to teach her the survival rules of this new undead world. First, he explained the concept of the wheels humanity relied on to survive the apocalypse. Most supplies came from these wheels, but activating one required crystals extracted from the undead. The more valuable the wheel's rewards, the more crystals it needed. She quickly deduced that there must be more wheels out there. Curious, she asked how he knew all this. Not wanting to reveal that he had been reborn, he swiftly changed the subject, suggesting she try spinning the wheel while he went hunting zombies outside. Before leaving, he paused at the door and gave her a stern warning to shut it tightly and, under no circumstances, to go outside. With that, he stepped out, preparing to face the undead once more, leaving her to process everything she had just learned. Outside, the undead wandered aimlessly, their groans filling the air. One of them seemed to sense something, turning its head just as he drove a blade into its skull. Sensing fresh prey, several other undead charged at him, but he was no easy target. His movements were quick and precise, his body agile as he wove through the mass of rotting bodies with practiced ease. He delivered powerful thrusts, slicing through the zombies as if they were overripe vegetables. When the last of them fell, he meticulously collected the crystals from their foreheads. Just as he finished, he heard desperate cries for help from behind him. Spinning around, he saw a girl being chased by two undead. Panic etched on her face, she bolted toward him, hiding behind his back in fear. Without hesitation, he stepped forward and met the undead head-on. With swift, deadly strikes, he brandished his blade, slashing them into mangled flesh. When he turned to check on the girl, her demeanor shifted. She clawed at him frantically, her mouth stretching open in a grotesque scream as she lunged at him. Thankfully, he was ready. In one fluid motion, he reached out, hooked her head, and drove his blade straight into her forehead, ending the threat before it could even begin. Returning with 11 undead crystals, adding them to the 3 he had already collected, he had just enough for 2 spins on the mysterious metal wheel. With Shin watching curiously, he carefully placed the crystals into the slots. As the last crystal disappeared, the wheel began spinning wildly. Both watched in anticipation. He silently prayed for some functional medicine. When the wheel finally slowed to a stop, it spat out for cans of food. He stared at them, a wave of disappointment washing over him. While canned food was a rare luxury during the apocalypse, it wasn't what he needed now. He wanted something that would give them a fighting chance, not just more supplies. JYN had already organized a large stash of unspoiled food while he was out hunting zombies, enough to last them for a while. Eating canned food at this point felt like a waste of a precious spin. Frustrated by his continued bad luck, he turned to her with an idea. He suggested she give it a try, thinking her luck might be better than his. He handed her the remaining crystals, hoping the wheel might offer something more valuable this time. As she placed the crystals, he noticed she looked like she was about to unlock a secret level. The wheel began to spin, and they both waited with bated breath. He thought each spin at the start of the apocalypse was crucial as it could rapidly boost combat abilities. Moments later, he was stunned. The wheel landed on an extremely valuable elimination card. He explained that the card allowed her to eliminate one reward. While it might not seem necessary now, he believed its value would become apparent when spinning for crucial equipment and skills. He looked at her in astonishment and asked if her luck was always this incredible. She shared that she had always been fortunate, whether it was getting extra bottles from soft drinks, winning big prizes from cracking eggs, or even drawing a live cow in a supermarket's lucky draw. This made him, who had been struggling with persistent bad luck, feel almost depressed. He speculated that Shin's luck might be due to her fortunate physique. Watching her bask in her excitement, he couldn't help but sneer. If she had a winning physique, he was determined to take full advantage of it. Early the following day, he prepared to slay the undead as daylight broke. His goal for the day was to collect 100 crystals. Seeing his confident determination, she resolved to support this great benefactor and make a meal worthy of 100 crystals. After some time, he returned panting and out of breath. He had 2 pieces of news for her and asked which she wanted to hear first. She opted for the good news. He told her that while the area was now completely overrun by zombies, he had managed to clear them all out. This impressive update thrilled her. He eagerly asked for the bad news, which was that he had only collected 21 crystals despite searching every house, room, and hidden spot in the area. Seeing his slight discouragement, she reassured him that this amount was still enough for several spins on the wheel. Hungry, he asked if there was something to eat. Soon, the dishes were served, but their appearance was unappetizing, even to dogs. She hesitantly admitted she wasn't very skilled at cooking and, with a hint of sadness, suggested that if he found the food unpalatable, he could always eat from the cans in the fridge. Despite the less than appealing presentation, he took a large bite and told her it tasted good, even if it looked terrible. Her eyes lit up at his comment. He was the first person not to reject her cooking. It was because he had survived the apocalypse and faced far worse, including eating dead human meat. Hunger and thirst were his greatest fears. After finishing the meal, they went to use the crystals he had collected on the wheel. Her luck was evident as the wheel rewarded them twice in a row with practical weapons, a gun and a crossbow. She handed him the remaining crystals, urging him to try. He shook his head, saying his luck was too poor. Undeterred, she took his hand, blew on it, and with a sincere expression, told him she had transferred her luck to him. Her gesture made him blush, unable to hide his surprise and gratitude. With 6 rewards remaining on the wheel and the odds of hitting the enhanced gene medicine now at a slim 1 in 6, she quickly suggested using the elimination card to remove the cookie option to improve their chances. Before they could reconsider, the discard card touched the wheel and suddenly ignited. His eyes widened in disbelief. Once the card made contact, their decision was set in stone. With a 1 in 5 chance remaining, he knew there was no turning back. Without hesitation, he inserted the crystals to initiate the spin. As the wheel started to whirl, both launched into fervent prayers, invoking every divine power they could imagine. As the wheel gradually slowed and the arrow settled on a green potion bottle, their faces lit up as if they had just won the jackpot. They had struck gold with a novice body-strengthening potion. This wasn't just any reward, it was a game-changer capable of amplifying combat skills and physical strength by at least 3-fold during the early stages of the apocalypse. In such a harsh world, a body-strengthening drug like this was essential. Excitedly, she urged him to drink the potion immediately. However, he had a different plan. Instead of gulping it down, he carefully combined the strengthening potion with some heparin he had taken from the hospital, pouring both into a tray. He explained that mixing the 2 substances could double the potion's volume, effectively transforming 1 bottle into 2. He elaborated that the wheel they used wasn't unique, numerous others were scattered in various locations, each equipped with its own set of reward boards. With the additional bottles they'd created, they could trade for valuable skill cards or specialized medicines with other survivors. This strategy enhanced their immediate strength and opened up opportunities for bartering and negotiations, increasing their chances of long-term survival. Soon enough, the 2 newly created strengthening potions were sitting before them. She was about to ask him how he knew how to make the medicine when he quickly shifted the conversation, pointing out that the medical water's temperature was too high and needed to be lowered immediately. Turning back to her, he emphasized that she should memorize every detail of the process and the correct temperature standards because it would be her turn to make the potion next time. She nodded, feeling confident she could handle the task. After finishing the potion making, she couldn't resist asking again how he knew all this. Before he could answer, they were interrupted by a knocking sound from outside. His expression turned serious as he hushed her, quickly pulling her upstairs. Confused, she asked why he seemed so alarmed. He explained that the sound came from a mutated stink bug. These locusts had evolved into cannibalistic insects. Individually, they weren't dangerous, but they hunted in swarms. Spotting one meant the entire horde was nearby. Sure enough, the swarm of mutated locusts soon broke through the door, swarming up the stairs toward them. They scrambled to use a wardrobe to block the door, but he warned her that these bugs were more dangerous than they seemed. They could even infect plants, turning them into flesh-eating organisms. When they thought they were safe, the banging sound started again, louder this time. Startled, she instinctively jumped into his arms. He might have thought they needed modesty spray more than bug spray at that moment. However, he eased her fears by telling her not to be scared, assuring her that he was there for her. His words made her feel at ease. Seeing the door battered relentlessly, he realized it wouldn't hold out much longer. He quickly decided to have her hide in the bathroom while he prepared to face the oncoming swarm. When she anxiously asked how he planned to survive against so many, he reassured her it would only take a few minutes. Without hesitation, he pulled out the strengthening potion he had just prepared. Aware of the side effects, but knowing it was his best shot, he drank it down without a second thought. As soon as he downed the potion, a wave of excruciating pain surged through his body, sending him collapsing to the floor. He writhed on the ground, agony consuming him as if his entire body was on fire. Just when the pain seemed ready to overpower him, the mutated beetles finally smashed through the door. He collapsed to the floor, but the potion's effect began to take hold. Was this the end for him? Not a chance. In an instant, a flash of steel sliced through the air, impaling one of the beetles. Fueled by the potion's strength, he sprang into action, launching himself at the swarm with lethal precision. His eyes glowed with an eerie red light, making him look like a reaper from the depths of hell. The side effects of the drug were unbearable, driving him to scream in fury as he fought. Despite the beetles swarming him, he roared defiantly and charged forward, his blade slicing through them with relentless force. In a frenzy of slashing and stabbing, he cut through the horde, leaving a trail of carnage in his wake. Green mutated blood splattered across the walls and floor as he hacked away at the last of the creatures. Finally, when the last beetle fell, he stood amidst the destruction, panting heavily from the exhausting battle, his body trembling from both the fight and the potion's after effects. As he surveyed the shattered limbs scattered on the floor, a nagging suspicion crept into his mind. The appearance of a locust swarm always signaled the presence of a locust queen. The swarm would continue reproducing endlessly if the queen wasn't dealt with. Just then, a massive mutant loomed into view. It was the locust queen, enraged at the sight of her slaughtered brood. The queen spewed a jet of green liquid at him. Fortunately, he reacted quickly, dodging the acidic spray by a hair's breadth. The liquid sizzled and corroded everything it touched, but he wasn't intimidated. As the queen charged again, he decided to stop holding back. He leaped into the air, soaring above the queen before driving his blade down hard into her back. The locust queen let out a bone-chilling shriek of agony, writhing in pain. He was relentless, living by the motto to strike when your enemy is weakest. Without hesitation, he twisted the blade handle and plunged it deeper. Moments later, the queen's strength drained away, and she collapsed with a heavy thud, defeated. After the battle, he staggered to the bathroom, knowing that pushing himself further would worsen the potion's side effects. As soon as he opened the door, Shin leapt into his arms, clinging tightly. Despite his exhaustion, he felt a sense of comfort and gently told her not to cry, reminding her that tears were the most useless thing in the apocalypse. Slowly, she calmed down, though the shock of being saved from such a nightmare still lingered. When she saw the bloody mess outside, her stomach churned as she tried to figure out how to dispose of the pile of corpses. He surprised her by casually mentioning that these were all fresh, delicious sashimi, hinting that this would be their food source. When she looked at him in disbelief, he explained that food supplies would become scarce after a year, and that these mutants would be one of the few edible resources left. He elaborated that in the apocalypse, food would come from 3 primary sources: unexpired food, food obtained from the wheel, and the corpses of the swarm. The idea of eating mutants horrified her, but he pragmatically pointed out that eating these creatures was still far better than resorting to cannibalism, a thought that left her even more shaken. Helplessly, she equipped herself with what she could find and began the grim task of hacking off the broken limbs. In no time, she had chunks of meat piled into a basin. Noticing her quick adaptation, he praised her for getting used to such gruesome work so swiftly. Before long, he approached her with his backpack slung over his shoulder, saying he needed to gather more undead crystals. He reassured her to trust that he would return. With her gaze fixed on him as he departed, he ventured into the danger, fully aware he would have to push even further from their temporary refuge. Navigating the desolate streets, his senses remained sharp, listening for any hint of activity. Yet, all he encountered were the grim remains of the undead and fallen humans, their bodies scattered like discarded remnants of a forgotten world. As he approached an intersection, cries for help pierced the air, forcing him to stop abruptly. Startled, he cursed under his breath, wondering what kind of fool would shout so recklessly in a situation like this. It was as if they deliberately invited every undead in the vicinity to descend upon them. At the intersection, his eyes locked onto a girl sitting on the ground, her desperate pleas echoing through the deserted streets. Without hesitation, he rushed over and clamped his hand over her mouth, whispering urgently for her to be silent before she attracted more of the undead. But it was already too late. The echoes of her cries had drawn a horde of undead, squeezing through narrow alleyways and charging straight toward them. Realizing the imminent danger, he quickly unsheathed his blade and slashed at the advancing undead with deadly precision. Despite his efforts, their numbers were overwhelming. Desperate to buy time, he ordered her to run while he held them off. In her panic, she noticed an open door nearby. Without thinking twice, she bolted inside and called out, urging him to hurry and take cover before it was too late. Ignoring the undead closing in behind him, he made a frantic dash for the door just as it was closing. As they slipped inside, they slammed the door shut behind him. Before they could catch their breath, a decaying hand suddenly shot through the gap, causing them to nearly jump out of their skins. Their terror was mirrored in their pale faces as the door, now unable to fully close, forced them to act quickly. They bolted up the stairs, but it soon became clear that her strength was failing. Her breath came in ragged gasps, and her pace slowed as exhaustion set in. Just as she stumbled, one of the undead managed to grab her leg, dragging her down the stairs with a vice-like grip. Without hesitation, he swung his large blade in a mighty arc, severing the undead's grasp with a single precise strike. He pulled her back to her feet, but the situation had worsened. The staircase was now swarming with undead, closing in from all directions. Just as the chaos threatened to overwhelm them, a sudden blinding light burst through the narrow window, casting an eerie, otherworldly glow over the scene. Turning toward the light, his heart pounded in his chest as he saw the source, a glowing white object descending from the sky, illuminating the dark stairwell like a beacon. The realization hit him with startling clarity. It was the dungeon key, an object of immense power now within their reach. In his past life, he had learned that the dungeon key was one of the rarest and most valuable items in the apocalypse. It was the only way to reach the dungeon mystery land, a place brimming with hope and wonder. Even top veterans had coveted it, though none had ever managed to obtain it. He was determined, the key of mysteries had to be his. Lost in thought, he was jolted back to reality by her urgent shout, "Watch out for the undead." He whirled around to see a vicious undead charging straight at him, aiming for his groin. Fear gripped him, and he broke into a cold sweat. In a panic, he slammed his fist into the undead's face, shielding himself and cursing the creature. As the undead charged, targeting his most vulnerable spot, he thought, "Great, even zombies know where it hurts the most." Fueled by anger, he decided to deal with the undead once and for all. The hallway was narrow, perfect for a defensive stance and counterattack. Just as he was about to strike, a grey hand reached out from the shadows. Staying calm, he swung his blade with precision, severing the hand. Green liquid splattered across the floor in a gruesome spray. In a flashback, we see her life just days before. She had everything: pursuers, fame, material wealth, and knowledge. She was truly the darling of heaven. But within days, everything unraveled. Her relatives, friends, and even her father had turned into man-eating mutants. Left kneeling helplessly, she faced what seemed like her final moments. As she saw the undead lying defeated on the ground, overwhelmed with joy, she couldn't believe he had managed to eliminate all the threats before her eyes. Her relief was interrupted by Zhong's scolding. If she wanted to stay alive, she couldn't afford to dawdle. They needed to find the key and act quickly. The downstairs area was swarming with undead, making it clear that going down was not an option. Their only chance was to reach the rooftop and find another way out. He had a plan. The rooftop of their building connected to the building in front, and he intended to exit from there. If they could make it, they'd be closer to their goal. Once he descended from that building, the key would be just 2 streets away. As he surveyed the area, he noticed vines creeping over every surface, their relentless growth overtaking the landscape. Suddenly, a branch snapped toward the young girl, wrapping around her and lifting her off the ground with surprising force. Without missing a beat, he sprang into action, intercepting the movement and catching her in midair. His response was swift and calculated, driven by instinct rather than emotion. He set her down without a word, his focus shifting back to the task at hand. She glanced at him, impressed by his quick thinking, but he remained unfazed, his mind occupied with the challenges ahead. Irritation simmered as he faced the mutated plants slowing their progress. Every second spent dealing with the overgrown foliage felt like a waste of time. He hacked through the vines with growing impatience, determined to push forward. At last, they reached a locked door. She asked what they should do next. His answer was direct and decisive, a powerful kick that sent the door crashing open. They quickly made their way to the rooftop, where they were met with the unexpected sight of a large group of survivors already gathered, waiting for whatever came next. A blonde guy wielding a baseball bat approached them with a stern expression, demanding to know what they were doing. He warned that breaking the door could attract more of the undead. Zhong quickly stepped forward, clarifying that they meant no harm and had already cleared out all the zombies in their building. The blonde's eyes widened in surprise, clearly taken aback by the claim. It seemed unbelievable that anyone could have cleared out all the zombies, especially with the constant threat of more potentially making their way up to the roof. Despite his skepticism, they used a shovel to prop up the broken door, hoping it would at least delay any potential threats. The blonde turned back to him, accusing him of putting everyone in danger. Before tensions could escalate, his friends intervened, pointing out that he and the girl hadn't even known there were others in the building. The blonde's anger subsided slightly, but his distrust remained evident. As the situation calmed, he took a moment to scan the surroundings from the rooftop, his eyes searching the horizon. The blonde, still wary, asked him about his intentions. He revealed that his goal was to reach the middle school. The blonde raised an eyebrow in surprise, questioning how he planned to navigate the streets likely crawling with zombies. He explained that he had seen some lights in that area and was determined to investigate them. The blonde's expression shifted from skepticism to reluctant admiration, impressed by his courage. He confirmed that the lights were indeed at the school and pointed out a possible shortcut, another building close to the east side of the rooftop. If he was willing to take the risk, he could try jumping across to reach it. However, the blonde warned that it was a dangerous move, one that could seriously injure anyone who attempted it. He looked at the gap between the buildings, weighing his options. The jump was risky, but it was also the fastest route to his destination. Determined, he made up his mind. The blonde watched him closely, as if trying to gauge whether this stranger would actually go through with it. He immediately headed east, intent on assessing the situation for himself. The gap between the buildings was about 5 meters, with the opposite rooftop sitting one level lower, a distance he judged challenging but manageable. For him, it was nothing more than a test of his daily training, something he felt confident handling. As he prepared to leap, the girl tugged at his clothes, her eyes wide with fear as she pleaded with him not to leave her behind. A brief pang of compassion crossed his mind, and he agreed to take her backpack with him across the gap. The blonde, watching this unfold, scoffed and warned that he was asking for trouble by trying to take both. Jong, thinking quickly, suggested using ropes to secure the backpack and his body to hers, ensuring they could cross together safely. The blonde let out a harsh laugh, dismissing the idea. He pointed out that there was no way she could make the jump while burdened with both a heavy backpack and another person. Instead, he offered a different solution. The girl should pass the backpack to him, and he would throw it over once they were safely on the other side. Jong wasn't convinced. He knew that handing over the backpack could mean losing it forever, especially to someone as untrustworthy as the blonde. When he declined the offer, the blonde's demeanor shifted from dismissive to hostile. His eyes narrowed as he threatened to break Jong's arm if he didn't comply. Jong could have replied with a cold smile, "You'll have to catch me first. Good luck with that." Without another word, he backed up, took a running start, and leaped from the 200-meter-high building. Time seemed to slow as he sailed through the air, the wind rushing past him. He landed on the opposite roof with a heavy thud, his bare arm and knee absorbing the impact and leaving scratches and bruises in their wake. The blonde stood on the other side, stunned into silence, unable to believe what he had just witnessed. Wasting no time, he quickly secured the ropes and prepared to help the girl across. But as he worked, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. His instincts proved correct. A hulking stranger, hidden in the shadows and observing them through binoculars, had been tracking their every move. This stranger, a member of a notorious outlaw community, saw the chaos unfolding below as an opportunity. These outlaws thrived on preying upon the vulnerable, exploiting lost and helpless women for their own twisted purposes. The predatory gleam in his eyes made it clear that he had set his sights on them and wasn't about to let this opportunity slip away. Inside the grimy makeshift establishment, women were being forcibly abused, and in private rooms, people placed bets on the brutality of the assailant. One guy turned to his friend and asked how much longer he thought the abuser would last. The friend, placing a bet for a cigarette, guessed 1 more minute. The white-haired guy scoffed, saying that this rundown place didn't even have a box of wine. He'd only found the cigarette from the body of an old man. His friend countered that if the place wasn't a school canteen, where would he find wine? To get wine, he'd need to head to the principal's office. A bald guy chimed in, noting that the principal's office was locked by some fool of a student. So what could they do? One of the men suggested waiting for the fifth brother, La Wu, and proposed throwing all the girls to the zombies. The white-haired guy objected, arguing that they shouldn't throw them away. This angered the bald guy, who seemed to think they'd gone beyond the point of no return. As they conversed, the giant who had been closely watching the girl with Jong walked in. The room erupted in chants of fifth brother in his honor. One of the men informed him that the building they were occupying was now surrounded by a massive horde of zombies, effectively trapping them inside. One guy grumbled about how one night had dramatically shifted the world's balance. La Wu laughed, dismissing the concern. He told them to do whatever they pleased, asserting that in this world, only the strongest reigned supreme, even in the apocalypse. He claimed their rule was only made more divine. The scene shifts back to Jong, risking his life as he weaves through the perilous streets in search of the dungeon key. His movements are swift and calculated, effortlessly darting past lurking monsters. However, the girl struggles to keep up, her breath coming in short, ragged gasps. Fear and exhaustion weigh heavily on her as she finally begs him to slow down, terrified that he might leave her behind. Irritated, he begrudgingly slows his pace but mutters under his breath about how she's become a burden, feeling tricked into helping her simply because she appeared helpless. His frustration is palpable, yet despite his annoyance, she manages to keep up, pushing herself to match his pace. After what feels like an eternity, they finally reach the school. The silence that greets them is eerie, with not a single sound to indicate the presence of the undead. The air is thick with tension, and he can't help but wonder where the zombies have gone. He guesses that the quiet is due to the undead being gathered elsewhere. Inside the school, multiple students had barricaded themselves in classrooms, desperately trying to escape the undead that had overrun the area. Their faces were marked by despair, knowing that even if the zombies didn't breach their makeshift defenses, hunger and isolation would eventually take their toll. As they cautiously moved through the hallways, a girl trapped inside one of the classrooms spotted them. Her eyes widened with a mix of hope and desperation, and she began calling out for help, her voice trembling with fear. The girl at his side instinctively moved to respond, but he immediately stopped her, his hand shooting out to silence her. "Don't," he admonished in a low, stern voice. He reminded her that making noise could attract the undead lurking nearby, potentially leading them straight to their location. His bluntness stung as he pointed out that she wouldn't be able to defend herself if they were swarmed. His words were harsh, but rooted in the grim reality of their situation. She hesitated, a pang of sadness washing over her as she looked at the trapped students. The sight of their helplessness and fear tugged at her heart, filling her with distress. She wanted to help them, to do something, anything to ease their suffering. But he, ever the realist, quickly quashed her thoughts of heroism. He explained that they had no idea how many zombies were outside those classrooms and that he wasn't equipped to take on such a large number. His tone was firm as he told her that this was the apocalypse, and if she truly wanted to save those students, she'd have to find a way to do it on her own. The gravity of his words sank in, and she nodded, a quiet apology slipping from her lips as she followed him through the dark, dilapidated corridors of the school. A flurry of questions raced through her mind. Why had he chosen this school as his destination? Was there any hidden sanctuary where they could evade the relentless zombies? The eerie silence of the school, punctuated only by their footsteps, heightened her anxiety. Trying to break the tension, she gathered the courage to thank him for saving her earlier, and asked for his name. He stopped abruptly and turned to face her with a skeptical look. "Do you really think a single word from you can repay the risk I took?" His tone dripped with sarcasm. She was momentarily stunned, unsure of how to respond. His bluntness caught her off guard. In frustration, she asked what he actually wanted. With a smirk, he told her that he had saved her to use her as bait. He added, almost casually, that in a tight spot, a pack of instant noodles would be more useful than she was. His remark left her speechless and taken aback by his cold indifference. Swallowing her pride, she introduced herself as Lin Chu Yin. In return, he shared his name. Despite his harsh demeanor, she decided to stick with him, convincing herself that deep down, he was a decent person, even if his mood was perpetually sour. As they continued their search for the dungeon key, distant cries for help from a corner classroom reached their ears. He hypothesized that the survivors inside might have seen the key or at least had valuable information about its location. He instructed Ling to stay hidden and, with agility, climbed up a pillar to reach the classroom. The noise from his movement attracted the undead inside the school. As a monstrous creature lunged at him, he reacted swiftly, delivering a powerful kick to its head and sending it crashing into a nearby wall. Landing with precision, he drew his blade and, in a series of swift, calculated strikes, dispatched the approaching undead. Inside the classroom, 3 survivors huddled together, their fear palpable. Among them was Teacher Pooh, who stepped forward with a mixture of relief and gratitude. He scanned the room, assessing the survivors and wondering if they had seen where the key might have fallen. Teacher Pooh introduced himself and explained that they were trapped with 2 students and a girl named Chiang, who had sadly perished. Pooh asked if they had seen a ray of light, emphasizing that any detail could be crucial. He promised that if they helped him locate the key, he would ensure their safety. The 2 students shook their heads, indicating they hadn't seen the light. However, Pooh spoke up with certainty, saying she had indeed seen it and even knew where it had landed. His curiosity piqued, he immediately pressed for the exact location of the light. Pooh, however, insisted that he first rescue them before revealing the key's location. Doubts clouded his judgment as he hesitated, questioning whether he would really assist them once he knew where the key was. Pooh described the key's descent in vivid detail, hoping it would be enough to secure their rescue. Despite the detailed description, he assessed that the situation was dire. There were too many undead outside to guarantee the safety of all 3 survivors with his current capabilities. He could only take 2 people with him. The children, outraged by his decision, demanded an explanation for his apparent disregard for their companion's life. They argued vehemently, finding his choice unfair and unreasonable. He sneered at their frustration, dismissing their pleas with a grim reminder: there's no fairness in the apocalypse. Only the strong survive, while the weak are left to perish. With a hardened resolve, he instructed them to remain where they were if they chose to wait for death. Drawing his sword and bracing for any potential attacks, he made his decision. He would take the 2 who were willing to follow him, leaving the rest to their uncertain fate. The students were gripped by fear, but Pooh gently caressed their shoulders, trying to offer them a shred of comfort. Standing at a distance, he ordered them to decide who among them would leave with him, understanding that only 2 could be saved out of the 3. Pooh didn't hesitate. Without a second thought, she selflessly offered the students the chance. Observing this, he assured her that he would safely escort the 2 children out. However, when he pressed for the key's exact location, Pooh, to his surprise, insisted that he wait until after the students were secure. Pooh promised to write down the location and toss it down to him only once they were safe. It was clear that Pooh had meticulously planned this, with every move calculated to ensure the children's survival. With a cold tone, he remarked that he hoped she wouldn't regret her self-sacrificing choice and then ordered the students to follow him. He could feel the presence of 3 zombies lurking just behind the door and quickly instructed Pooh to lock it as soon as they exited. As he opened the door, one of the zombies tried to slip through, but he was faster, delivering a swift kick that sent the creature crashing into the wall. In one fluid motion, he decapitated it with a precise slice. Pooh, though outwardly stern, was just as terrified as the others, yet she stayed firm, fully aware of her duty to protect her students. Grabbing the 2 girls, he led them swiftly down the stairs. However, something felt amiss. The entire corridor was eerily silent, not a single undead could be seen. A looming monstrous presence seemed to hang in the air, and he quickly warned them to slow down. The students, their anxiety mounting, asked if he had sensed something wrong, as the path ahead appeared clear. Ignoring whether his instincts might be off, he pressed on, racing down the stairs. Suddenly, a massive shadowy serpent lunged at them in a surprise attack. Reacting instantly, he drew his machete and swung, only for the serpent to vanish before his blade could connect. The girls, bewildered, asked why they had stopped. More convinced now of a lurking danger, he hushed them. After a thorough search, he found nothing, leaving him to question whether his senses were playing tricks on him. The shadow serpent crept closer and closer to the girls, inch by inch, while they remained oblivious to the looming danger. He, trailing behind, was lost in thought, the strange aura around him gnawing at his instincts. The serpent flicked its tongue, teasing Shia's hair and sending a chill down her spine. When she turned to look, her blood ran cold as she faced the serpent's gaping mouth filled with sharp, jagged teeth, ready to crush her. In a panic, she nearly lost control of herself. In that split second, he hurled his machete at the serpent's mouth. With a sharp swoosh, a piece of the serpent's lip fell to the ground, and the building echoed with its agonizing shriek, a sound that pierced through the gut and heart. Enraged, the serpent lashed out with its claws at him. Instead of retreating, he stood his ground, meeting the attack head-on with his fist. To his shock, the punch didn't even faze the beast. He quickly realized that the serpent had metal-clad arms, making it a nearly indestructible foe. Its relentless attacks, barely dodged by him, proved it was far harder to defeat than he had anticipated. Seeing the serpent's relentless strength, he launched a perfect roundhouse kick, aiming for its head with all his might. But the attack seemed to have no effect. Instead, the serpent's insane strength allowed it to seize him by the leg with brutal force and slam him into the ground so hard that the floor cracked beneath him. The girl watched in horror, her heart gripped with fear. If he couldn't defeat this monster, none of them had a chance to escape. Desperately, she called out to her companion, Lee, for help, but to her dismay, Lee fled, abandoning her in panic. Now he appeared heavily injured and barely able to move. The serpent raised its powerful arms high, preparing to crush him with all its might. Was this how his tragic life would end? Just as the serpent was about to deliver the fatal blow, a sudden bang echoed through the hallway. The serpent was sent flying northwest by a gunshot. He had managed to draw a gun just in time, feeling a surge of relief, though his condition was far from stable. The earlier impact had dislocated his right arm. Gritting his teeth, he urged the girl to get up quickly if they wanted any chance of survival. But before they could move, the sound of metallic thuds echoed from the stairwell. Tong, 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 as footsteps gradually drew closer. The girl's heart leaped into her throat, her fear spiking. Only then did he fully realize the gravity of their situation. Could the gunshot have attracted nearby undead? Seeing the impending danger, he immediately shielded the two girls behind him. Within seconds, Ling, having come up from downstairs, hurled herself into his arms, breathless and terrified. She stammered that she had waited for him so long that she was scared to death. Relieved to see she wasn't one of the undead, the two girls exhaled deeply. Through her fear, Ling explained that after a prolonged search, she had finally found him earlier at the multimedia center. A sudden flash of light had erupted, causing a horde of undead to surge in from all directions. Trapped in the chaos, she had been overwhelmed with fear and, with no other option, had fled in desperation, racing upstairs to find him. As he absorbed her account, the pieces fell into place. The source of light that attracted the undead was clear now. It was the light from the wheel. As the old saying goes, sometimes you search fruitlessly only to find what you need by chance. He quickly gathered everyone and led them downstairs. On the way down, Lee expressed her regret to Xia for not being able to help her, and Xia accepted it with understanding, acknowledging it wasn't intentional. They soon exited the classroom building without incident. Seeing that all the students were safe, Pooh hesitated for a moment, considering whether she should have kept the key's location secret, trusting that he would eventually come to rescue her. But she quickly dismissed the thought, realizing he still had the kids to worry about. She tossed down the paper with the location written on it. Ling asked him why he hadn't helped Pooh. He explained that the teacher had mistrusted him, so he decided to teach her a lesson. As he unfolded the paper and read it, he discovered that the key had landed at a construction site, an out-of-the-way spot that most people would overlook. Realizing the importance of finding the wheel that Ling mentioned, he concluded that the wheel was his top priority. Distrusting the students' reliability, he decided to search for the wheel first rather than hunt for the dungeon key with them. He informed everyone that they were heading to the multimedia center. Despite Ling's warning that it was overrun with zombies, he brushed off the danger, confident that the greater the risk, the greater the reward. With determination, he instructed the students to follow him. When they arrived at the multimedia center, it quickly became apparent that it was teeming with undead. Lee, alarmed, questioned whether he had deliberately led them into such a dangerous situation. It seemed to her that after getting the information he needed, he considered them expendable and intended to use them as bait for the undead. Hearing their concerns, he responded firmly. He explained that the apocalypse was filled with undead no matter where one went, but assured them that he wasn't so despicable as to use them as mere bait. He made it clear that they had to wait outside until he cleared out the center and returned. After giving his instructions, he ventured alone into the multimedia center. Ling wondered why he was so determined to go inside. Was there something crucial he needed? Meanwhile, Lee was concerned that he was making a grave mistake. Despite having a gun, she doubted his ability to take on all the zombies alone. While they took refuge in a hallway, Lee decided they should leave for a safer location. She grabbed Xia's hand and urged her to come with her, insisting that they couldn't wait around and risk being killed by the zombies. She frightened Xia by suggesting that Zhong might not survive the overwhelming number of undead and that they needed to avoid the same fate. Xiao, who was soft-hearted, hesitated, worried about leaving him after all he had done for them. Ling, sensing something off, asked what they were planning. Li fibbed, claiming she had a stomachache and that Xiao was just accompanying her to the washroom. Although Ling found this explanation suspicious, her primary concern was for Zhong's safety. As Zhong stepped inside, he saw a group of pitch-black undead. The situation was grim, but he noted with relief that there were no mutated monsters among them, unlike before. He prepared for yet another intense battle, knowing there was no room for hesitation. His right arm hung uselessly at his side, dislocated from a previous encounter. Without wasting any time, he grabbed his arm and, biting down on his machete to keep from making noise, forcefully reset it with a sharp crack. The pain shot through him, but he didn't dwell on it. He had been through this process many times in his past life and knew better than to let it slow him down. The noise, however, caught the attention of the nearby zombies, who began closing in. He didn't hesitate, quickly drawing his pistol and starting to fire. Each shot was precise and controlled, the zombies falling one by one, their bodies piling up on the floor as he methodically cleared the room. The sound of gunfire echoed through the building, alerting those outside to the danger within. Lee, assessing the situation, immediately formulated a plan. She decided to take shelter in the teacher's dormitory and urged Xia to come with her, knowing they needed to act fast. However, Xiao broke away from her grip and ran toward Ling, pleading with her to join them instead. Li, frustrated by her actions, muttered that bringing Xiao along was a mistake, thinking more people would only mean less food to go around. Ling, however, refused to abandon Zhong. She questioned how long they thought they could survive. Without him, he was a powerful ally, and leaving him behind would be a death sentence for them. Lee tried to change Ling's mind, pointing out the risks, but Ling countered with cold logic. If Zhong couldn't handle himself inside the center, they had no chance of surviving outside. Lee was left without a response, silenced by her reasoning. Inside the building, the battle continued. Zhong moved with precision, cutting down the undead with ruthless efficiency. The floor was littered with the corpses of the zombies he had defeated, a stark reminder of the relentless fight he had just endured. Then something caught his eye amidst the chaos. Standing before him was a color wheel, distinct and unexpected. He approached cautiously, realizing as he got closer that this wasn't just any ordinary wheel, it was an extra-rare tricolor wheel, far more valuable than anything he had anticipated finding. He paused, his mind racing as he assessed the situation. He knew its value and what it could mean for his future efforts. The exhaustion from the battle faded into the background as he prepared to claim this rare find. Understanding the significance of what lay before him, he knew that in the apocalypse, wheels wield incredible power, with the potential to save lives. While ordinary wheels range from grade 1 to 9, there are also special multicolored wheels, the tricolor wheel, the 7-color wheel, and the 9-color wheel. Ordinary wheels offer equipment and food, but multicolored wheels provide extraordinary benefits. They grant formidable battle skills such as warrior, assassin, and ranger abilities, as well as incredible support skills like doctor, alchemy, and even chef. Attaining a professional skill from a wheel unlocks its greatest resources. For instance, an assassin with a wild battle sword could achieve mover-like precision and prowess. However, compared to a single-color wheel, multicolored wheels are incredibly rare. There's also a risk. If the wheel lands on a black area, it could explode like a bomb. As Zhong focused on the wheel, he noticed a badge within the black area, indicating it was a professional section and therefore safe from explosion. Despite his string of rotten luck, he had unexpectedly found a tricolor wheel. Could it be that Shin's luck had somehow transferred to him? In the hallway, Xiao desperately tried to persuade Ling to flee from the center, but Ling steadfastly refused. Instead, she warned them about the potential dangers ahead, urging them to trust Zhong's abilities. Despite the danger of making noise and attracting more zombies, Li remained confident that they were safe. She believed the zombies were all drawn to Zhong inside the multimedia center. With a sarcastic remark, she dragged Shor away, suggesting they should wait for Zhong's corpse, their supposed savior. Ling, enraged by this, slapped Li across the face and demanded she remember who had saved her life. Li, stung by the humiliation, retaliated with a slap of her own, warning Ling not to assume Zhong would always be there to protect them. As the tension between them escalated, she had tried to lead Ling away, unaware of the looming danger. Meanwhile, in the darkness, a pair of watchful eyes focused intently on Ling, who remained blissfully unaware of the impending threat. The fifth brother, enjoying the recent chaos, ordered his men to capture her immediately. Despite their concerns about plunging into a horde of zombies, their leader was confident that all the zombies had been lured into the center, making it relatively safe. Elsewhere, Li, fuming with anger, searched for a good hiding spot, while Xia, bewildered and questioning their decision to split up, tried to keep her voice low. As they descended the stairs, they detected someone's presence due to subtle movements. Meanwhile, Ling, consumed by anger at the ungrateful girls, wandered aimlessly until she heard distant screams. Before she could react, a man seized her from behind, restraining her tightly. Her cries for help went unheard as a crude man appeared around the corner, leering at her beauty. He ordered his men to take her to Lao for their amusement. Despite her warnings that Zhong would not take kindly to this, they dismissed her, confident that he was likely dead and no one would come to her rescue. Back inside the multimedia center, Zhong wished for a cheat code to automatically gather all the crystals, reflecting on how, in the apocalypse, manual labor was even worse than zombies. Unaware of the chaos outside, he desired a cheat code like in a game to gather all the crystals effortlessly. Li and Xia sprinted through the desolate streets, pursued by a savage zombie closing in on them with terrifying speed. Their breath came in ragged gasps as they cried for help, but Li quickly silenced Xia, warning her that shouting would attract more undead. In desperation, Li stumbled, her legs giving way beneath her. Xia stopped to help her, but Li, driven by an overwhelming instinct to survive, made a split-second decision. She shoved Xia directly into the path of the approaching zombie, using her as bait to buy herself time to escape. Xia's eyes widened in shock and disbelief as she was thrown to the ground, left to the mercy of the undead. The zombie pounced on her with feral aggression, and within moments, her screams were silenced by the grisly sounds of her demise. Drenched in sweat and shaking from the near miss, Li forced herself to keep moving. She retraced her steps back to the spot where Zhong had instructed them to wait, only to be confronted by a horrifying sight. Ling was being dragged away by a group of kidnappers. Fear gripped Lee as she watched the scene unfold, knowing that if she stayed, she could share the same fate. Without a second thought, she began to back away, hoping to escape unnoticed. But one of the kidnappers caught sight of her and gave chase. Panic surged through her as she fled, her lungs burning with every breath. Meanwhile, Ling refused to give in without a fight. She managed to sink her teeth into one of her captor's hands, causing him to curse in pain and loosen his grip just enough for her to break free. She stumbled and fell, but before the kidnapper could recapture her, a sharp blade suddenly pierced his hand. He howled in agony and released her as he clutched his wounded hand. Seizing the opportunity, Ling scrambled to her feet and rushed toward Zhong, who had arrived just in time. Ling threw herself into Zhong's arms, relief washing over her as she realized he had come to save her. The building echoed with the kidnapper's gut-wrenching screams as Zhong pulled the blade from his hand. The kidnapper's face contorted in fury as he spat out a threat, vowing that his boss and the notorious fifth brother would never let this insult go unpunished. But before he could finish, Zhong delivered a crushing punch to his chest followed by a brutal kick to his face, sending him crumpling to the ground. With the kidnappers incapacitated, Zhong turned to Ling with a serious expression. He asked where the other girls were, and she explained that Li and Xia had doubted he would make it out alive and had decided to head in a different direction. As they spoke, Li staggered into view, breathless and disheveled. She quickly fabricated a story, claiming that Xia had fallen behind and was overtaken by zombies. Her voice trembled as she apologized, promising to be more cautious in the future. Ling asked Zhong what he planned to do with the kidnappers. He assured her that she needn't worry, the zombies would take care of them. There was no point in wasting any more energy on scum like them. With the multimedia center now secured and the undead threat eliminated, Li finally understood the full extent of Zhong's strength. Realizing that staying close to him was her best chance for survival in this unforgiving world, Zhong sensed her newfound resolve. He instructed them both to remain at the multimedia center while he went back to retrieve someone important. As he disappeared into the shadows once more, by ruthless forces, Teacher Pooh, overwhelmed by despair, heard knocking on the door. In her desperation, she grabbed a shard of broken glass, ready to end her life. Amid the chaos of the apocalypse, she feared the worst and resolved to take her own life on her own terms, believing her mission to help her students had been fulfilled. Just as she was about to act, Zhong kicked the door open with a forceful bang, interrupting her tragic decision. Zhong's timely arrival prevented Pooh from making a grievous mistake. She threw herself into his arms, tears streaming down her face as she sobbed about her belief that she was going to die. She thanked him for not abandoning her. Zhong, though relieved to have dealt with the kidnappers, struggled to hide his blush. He explained that his actions were a lesson in trust and that he was now taking her to safety. Meanwhile, Ling and Li were busy collecting crystals as Zhong had instructed. Li complained about the task, finding it repulsive. When Zhong returned with Pooh, she quickly approached her student, embracing her and anxiously inquiring about Xia. Upon learning that Xia had been killed by the undead, Pooh blamed herself, unaware that Li had actually pushed Xia into the path of danger. Seeing Pooh's distress, Li feigned sympathy, suggesting that Xia's death could have been avoided if Zhong had saved everyone at once. She implied that they were indirectly responsible for Xia's demise. Ling, infuriated by Li's accusations, shouted that if she hadn't ignored advice and insisted on bringing Xia along, the girl might not have been killed. Li retorted that both Ling and Zhong had used people as bait for the undead, playing the role of saviors while putting others at risk. Before the argument could escalate further, Zhong slapped Li, instructing her to think before speaking. He made it clear that if he could save her, he could just as easily leave her to the undead. The slap was meant to make her realize that taking on more people meant more danger, and his decision to save her was an act of benevolence, not an obligation. Pooh quickly intervened, trying to calm everyone down. She explained that children often speak without thinking and urged them not to take it personally. She also expressed her gratitude to Zhong for saving her life. Ling, curious about the task of collecting crystals, asked Zhong why they had been assigned this task. Without answering immediately, Zhong led the group to where the tricolor wheel had appeared. Ling was surprised to discover that this was where the crystals were meant to be used. Zhong explained that unlike the rank wheel, the tricolor wheel didn't simply count the number of crystals but measured their energy to reach a specific activation threshold. He inserted 26 rank 1 crystals into the energy plate, and the wheel began to spin rapidly. A wave of relief washed over Zhong as the wheel eventually stopped on the red square and a box emerged. He opened it with eager anticipation, expecting a powerful combat profession. His excitement turned to shock when he saw the profession awarded was Glory Artisan. Disappointed, Zhong realized that this role wouldn't make him exceptional. From the colored wheels, one could receive both a primary and a support profession. Artisan, classified as a support type, did not enhance combat abilities. Lee asked to see the reward, feeling that all her hard work shouldn't be used by Jong alone. He handed the page to Pooh and examined the other items, including a 4-colored badge that seemed unusual. Pooh read the page, discovering that the artisan profession included techniques such as enchantment, magic collection, mosaic, and crafting. The mention of these techniques piqued Jong's interest. Realizing that the artisan profession wasn't as useless as he initially thought, Jong understood that these skills could produce and upgrade weapons, greatly enhancing their capabilities. Each color of metal represented a different ability. Seeing the potential, Jong noted that there were still plenty of crystals left from the undead and called everyone to help gather them. Their goal was to eliminate a few more zombies in the area, strengthening their position. He emphasized the importance of acquiring skills for better self-defense. As they worked to clear the corpses, Lao watched from a distance. He was impressed by Jong's strength, having single-handedly cleared the entire media center of zombies. However, Lao was puzzled by their meticulous sorting through the bodies. When he noticed one of the zombie heads missing a crystal, he quickly pieced together their plan. Sensing a shift in his boss's focus, Bion, his assistant, asked what he had discovered. Fifth brother ordered him to assemble everyone immediately for an urgent task. After clearing the piles of corpses, Ling felt a gnawing hunger since she hadn't eaten in a day. Jong handed her a food packet and advised her to drink water from the school bathroom, noting that the water tank still worked. He handed her a backpack containing 3 days' worth of food and emergency medicine, instructing her to take good care of it as it held essential supplies. He told her to stay in the media center, which was relatively safe, while he went outside to handle some tasks. With a hint of sadness, Ling asked if he was planning to go off alone again. He replied that he needed to retrieve the key to the mysteries first, and reminded them to keep gathering crystals, assuring them he would return soon. Lee, concerned, questioned what they should do if zombies attacked while he was away. He bluntly stated that protecting them was not his responsibility. He then picked up an ordinary wooden stick and, in seconds, transformed it into a long wooden spear using his crafting skills. He distributed the spears to them for self-defense, warning them that without proper protection, only death awaited them. Ling understood the harsh reality and accepted that they needed to learn to fend for themselves in this ruthless apocalyptic world. With the spears handed out, he left to continue his work. He headed alone to the construction site of the nearby school's new building. As he entered the site, a black shadow suddenly fell from the sky. Instinctively, he caught the falling figure, realizing it was not an object but a girl in a military uniform. When their eyes met, she sprang from his arms and grabbed his uniform, taking him by surprise. He shouted at her, questioning her sanity for treating her savior like this. Despite his protests, she maintained a stern demeanor, interrogating him with sharp questions about his identity and reasons for being there. Seeing reason wasn't working, he quickly used force to free himself from her grip and restrained her by gripping her neck. He demanded answers to the same questions she had posed. Realizing she was dealing with someone with high combat skills, she warned him that he was assaulting an officer. Recognizing her status, he eased his grip. Impressed by his quick reflexes, she asked if he was trained in martial arts. He admitted to practicing for 10 years, though he had started as a novice. Suddenly, a bullet zipped past them, narrowly missing its mark. He reacted instantly, pulling the girl with him as he ducked behind a nearby wall for cover. She quickly explained that the people chasing her were death row inmates who had escaped during the chaos of the apocalypse. His tension eased slightly as he recalled how such criminals had run rampant in the previous apocalypse. With a grim smile, he decided it was time to be less restrained. However, he noted a significant problem. The criminals were heavily armed, having completely raided a weapons depot. They were well aware of their firepower advantage and had already begun to display their unhinged nature. Among the criminals, their leader, Lao Chen, barked orders at his subordinate, Del, to force the girl out of hiding. Dolly hesitated, asking about the man with her, to which Chen coldly replied that he was to be killed on sight. Determined, Dolly eagerly charged toward them, intent on delivering a fatal headshot. But as she approached, a single bullet pierced the center of her forehead, dropping her instantly. Jong hadn't taken down criminals in a while, but his aim remained deadly accurate. The sudden death of Dolly sent the gang into a frenzy. They unleashed a wild barrage of bullets at his previous position, trying to suppress any threat. Caught off guard, they were surprised when Jong suddenly appeared above them. From his elevated position, he took aim and fired a shot straight into Lao Chen's chest, killing him instantly. Panic erupted among Chen's remaining associates as they scrambled to aim at him. The policewoman with Jong sprang into action, delivering a powerful knee strike to one of the criminals, followed by a precise punch that sent him flying. The criminal, now on the ground and begging for mercy, looked up at her with fear. Before she could decide his fate, Jong had already pulled the trigger, ending his life with a cold, unhesitating shot. The policewoman rounded on him, scolding him for killing a criminal who had already surrendered. She questioned why he had pulled the trigger when the man was no longer a threat. Jong offered no answer, his expression remaining hard and unreadable as he holstered his weapon. After ensuring the criminal was dead, she questioned him again about his actions. He explained that he was doing what police officers should have done, eliminating dangerous criminals. He murmured that in the apocalypse, there were countless cases where people begged for help, not just from the undead, but from scum like death row criminals who preyed on them. He recounted how, in his past life, his ex-girlfriend was brutally raped and killed by such criminals. He emphasized that since these criminals were already sentenced to death, he would show them no mercy. She looked at him, noting his cold demeanor. While she understood his reasoning, she was struck by how young he was yet so mercilessly cold-blooded. She wondered what experiences had hardened him so profoundly. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, a man nervously informed Lao Chen that the two people he had sent to rescue had already been. Lao Wo's rage flared when he learned that the two men he had sent for rescue had been bitten to death by zombies. Enraged by the news, he reacted swiftly and brutally when the man suggested avoiding Jong due to his formidable martial arts skills. Lao Wo landed a heavy punch on the man's face, knocking him off balance. He sneered, declaring that killing Jong was the key to controlling the entire area. With him out of the way, they would claim all the weapons, resources, and women. Turning to address the gathered criminals, Lao Wo's voice boomed with authority. He announced that someone had dared to act with impunity on their territory and, worse, had killed two of their brothers. Bien, not fully grasping the gravity of the situation, foolishly tried to argue that the men had been killed by zombies, not by Jong. This only fueled Lao Wo's fury. He struck Bien again, silencing him with a warning to keep his mouth shut unless he wanted to lose more than just his dignity. Lao Wo then clarified to the group that the apocalypse had changed the rules. While they had previously operated in the shadows, now they were free to take whatever they wanted, and no one could infringe on that freedom, not even Jong. The criminals roared in agreement, their bloodlust ignited by Lao Wo's words. With a malevolent gleam in his eyes, Lao Wo vowed that Jong would not survive the day. He issued orders to be on high alert, understanding that this mission was crucial to solidifying their control over the territory. Meanwhile, Jong and the policewoman arrived at the site where the dungeon key was supposedly lost. As they began searching, the policewoman asked what they were looking for. Jong explained that they were searching for an essential key he needed to retrieve at all costs. Sensing the gravity of his words, she pressed for more details. He described the key as unique in shape and easily recognizable, urging her to be vigilant in their search. Determined to help, the policewoman joined the search with renewed focus. As the sky began to darken, Jong knew the key would start to emit bright rays, making it easier to spot. He was deep in thought strategizing their next steps when suddenly she called out that she had found a key. Jong turned to her with a flicker of hope, only to be disappointed when he realized it wasn't the right key. He instructed her to discard it and continue the search. As they resumed searching, her sharp eyes caught something unusual behind a nearby dog's paw. She spotted glowing green eyes peering back at her and pointed it out to Jong. Realizing the gravity of the situation, he knew they were in for a fight. The mutated dog, a creature far more dangerous than the zombies they had been dealing with, was a formidable opponent with enhanced abilities. The level 2 mutated dog, with its sheer size and strength, charged at them with a menacing growl. Jong fired 2 shots quickly, but the agile beast dodged effortlessly. The policewoman was equally helpless. The dog's speed and unpredictability exceeded their expectations. As the massive dog lunged at Jong, he braced himself for a vicious attack. However, instead of feeling sharp teeth sink into his flesh, he was met with something entirely unexpected. The dog began frantically licking his cheeks, its tail wagging furiously. Caught off guard and struggling to comprehend the bizarre behavior of what he had assumed was a dangerous creature, Jong was surprised. The policewoman watched in disbelief as the dog licked him, remarking, "Looks like it's trying to turn you into a chew toy, or maybe just a really moist snack." Jong looked closer at the dog and a flicker of recognition crossed his face. There was something familiar about the dog's tail, something that sparked a memory from his childhood. He recalled a time when he had encountered a small, hungry puppy desperately trying to steal food from a drunken man. The man had retaliated cruelly, striking the puppy with a glass bottle and stepping on its tail, breaking it in the process. Young Jong had devised a clever ruse to protect the puppy, convincing the man that the dog was infected with dangerous bacteria, which successfully scared him off and saved the puppy from further harm. The dog had remembered him and was expressing its gratitude in the only way it knew, with eager licks and a wagging tail. Touched by the dog's affection, Jong reached into his pack and pulled out a cookie, offering it to the dog, which gratefully accepted and devoured it in seconds. This small act of kindness stirred something within him, making him reflect on the bond he had shared with the dog as they grew up. Now reunited under the most unexpected circumstances, Jong realized that this was the very same puppy he had saved all those years ago. The policewoman, still observing, expressed her amazement that he could recognize the dog despite its transformation. She was curious about the peculiar name, Yellow Pill, that he called it. Jong explained with a faint smile that the name was a nod to the dog's appearance when it was a stray, a small round yellow ball of fur. The name had stuck with him ever since, a reminder of the innocent creature he had once protected. As he finished explaining, Yellow Pill resumed its affectionate licking, seemingly overjoyed to be reunited with its old friend. The policewoman laughed, genuinely touched by the sight. At that moment, she saw a different side of him, a softer, more compassionate side. A softer side of Jong emerged, contrasting sharply with his usual tough and hardened demeanor. Across the city, 3 girls sat tensely around a table, the air heavy with unspoken frustration. The tension was palpable when Lee suddenly stood up, pointing an accusing finger at Ling. She demanded to know if there was any food left in the backpack. Ling firmly denied it, but Lee, unconvinced and increasingly agitated, insisted she had seen canned meat inside earlier. Accusing Ling of hoarding food, Lee refused to back down. Ling, her patience wearing thin, reminded Lee that allowing her to eat anything was already generous. She added that if Lee wasn't satisfied, she could give up the cracker she was holding. Undeterred, Lee tried to snatch the backpack, pushing the boundaries of decency. Ling's frustration boiled over as she reminded Lee that the food had been entrusted to her by Jong, and Lee had no right to take it. Refusing to relent, Lee resorted to her old bullying tactics, demanding they split the food evenly and accusing Ling of using Jong's name to intimidate them. The argument escalated, voices rising and tempers flaring until Pooh finally stepped in. She urged everyone to calm down, pleading with them to be thankful for what they had and not to waste their energy on unnecessary conflicts. Still seething from Lee's audacity, Ling silently resolved never to give her any more food, no matter what. Though Pooh's intervention prevented the situation from spiraling out of control, it left a bitter taste in Ling's mouth. Lee realized that if Teacher Pooh hadn't intervened, they might have succeeded in taking the remaining food. The atmosphere remained tense, but Pooh's calm words had at least restored a fragile semblance of order. Outside, Jong suddenly sneezed, causing the policewoman to be concerned. She asked if he was coming down with something, to which he replied with a wry smile, joking that someone might be missing him. He then suggested they search the area for resources, noting that this location should be rich with supplies. She agreed, thankful for the flashlight that made finding the key possible in the darkness. Jong advised her to turn off the light, thinking that the absence of illumination might help spot the key since it glowed in the dark. As they continued their search, absorbed in their task, they were unaware of the ominous presence lurking in the shadows, inching closer. In the pitch-black surroundings, Jong spotted a faint glimmer of light. His heart raced as he wondered if this was the key they sought. He dug and, to his immense relief, unearthed the dungeon key. He shouted with triumph, and the policewoman cheered alongside him. But their celebration was short-lived. From the shadows, a long, writhing tongue shot out. Before they could react, an enormous mutated lizard lunged forward, its sticky tongue snaring the policewoman with a sickening slurp. As she was about to be devoured, Jong acted swiftly, drawing his mountain dagger. With a mighty swipe, he severed the lizard's tongue, freeing her from its grasp. She stared in stunned silence at the massive creature while Jong, breathless and alert, prepared for the next attack. The lizard, undeterred, lashed out with its sharp claws. Jong deftly dodged its strikes but was briefly caught off guard as his loyal dog, Yellow Pill, sprang into action. The dog engaged the lizard, its movements agile and determined, drawing the beast's attention away. Taking advantage of the distraction, Jong leaped up and drove his dagger into one of the lizard's eyes. The creature roared in fury, thrashing wildly as Jong's stamina began to falter under the relentless assault. Though exhausted, he remained determined, his focus locked on subduing the beast. As the lizard charged again, Yellow Pill bravely threw itself between Jong and the monster. Despite Jong's urgent shouts to move, Yellow Pill stood its ground, roaring defiantly and shielding him from the ferocious beast's assault. Jong, moved by the dog's bravery, joked, "Looks like my dog's auditioning for a role in a monster movie, best supporting canine." But Yellow Pill ignored his words and charged at the lizard, biting fiercely. The lizard retaliated by whipping its tail, sending the dog flying. The lizard didn't stop there and tried to grip Yellow Pill with its claws. Seeing his loyal pet in dire straits, Jong rushed to block the lizard's next attack. He blocked its strike with his dagger but couldn't resist the strength of the lizard and was thrown aside. Now towering over Jong with its mouth wide open, the lizard seemed poised to devour him. Just then, a sharp blade streaked through the air, cutting through the lizard precisely. The policewoman had managed to defeat the monster with a single slash. The beast collapsed immediately. Exhausted, Jong sat down, taking a moment to catch his breath. He hadn't expected such a ferocious act from her. He gently stroked Yellow Pill's head, praising the dog for its bravery. "Well done," he said, relieved to see that Yellow Pill had shown remarkable courage despite being a dog in the face of danger. Yellow Pill responded by licking him all over, leaving him covered in slobber. The policewoman chuckled at the scene, her early tension easing now that the immediate threat had passed. As they caught their breath after the fight, two suspicious men stealthily approached and quickly concealed themselves. It seemed the delegates had arrived, unaware of the looming threat. Jong continued his work, methodically digging into the head of the lizard. The policewoman, intrigued, questioned him about his actions and observed a crystal covered in green blood. He explained that this crystal was a crucial resource in their post-apocalyptic world. He urged her to examine it closely, suggesting it held more than magical properties. When she asked if the crystal had any inherent magic, he hinted that it had even greater secrets once she understood its true nature. The policewoman's curiosity was piqued, and she pressed for more information. True to form, Jong insisted on a condition before divulging more details. However, the policewoman remained unimpressed by his offer, finding it insufficient. Jong was stunned by the audacity of the police officer to impose conditions on him. She decided she would uncover the crystal's secrets on her own, an immediate rejection he had never encountered from a woman before. Unlike Shin and Lean, who had been more receptive, she decided it was time to part ways. Jong was taken aback by how swiftly their brief friendship ended. Hesitantly, he called after her, admitting he had an unreasonable request. Given the perilous surroundings, harsh environment, and many threats they faced, he proposed that teaming up might offer better coordination and safety. She considered his suggestion thoughtfully, stroking her chin. Jong felt dejected and hung his head, questioning why he seemed so pathetic. Yellow Pill patted him gently, offering a small comfort. Finally, the policewoman looked at him with a hint of appraisal, remarking that while his behavior was odd, he didn't seem like a bad person. She extended her hand for a handshake and introduced herself as Mori. Relieved and grateful, he shook her hand and introduced himself in return. As they were talking, two shady figures crept up, their eyes falling on a gun hidden in the rubble. One man eagerly grabbed the weapon and whispered to his companion, who quickly clamped a hand over his friend's mouth, hissing for silence to avoid alerting their targets. They swiftly followed Jong and Mori. Suddenly, they were confronted from behind by two hoodlums. One ordered Jong to surrender, claiming they had no choice, while the other, bristling with anger, retorted that Lawo had instructed them to kill, not capture. With only one hoodlum brandishing a gun and preparing to shoot, the situation was dire. These two were out for revenge for their fallen comrades. After half a day, the anticipated gunshot never came. Mo, puzzled by the delay, inquired about their identity. Jong revealed that these men were criminals, much like the one they had previously dispatched. The gunman's face turned awkward as he glanced behind him, realizing he hadn't fired. His companion chastised him for his incompetence, revealing that he hadn't disengaged the safety mechanism. Bewildered, the gunman admitted he was a guard who had never handled a real gun before. His partner was shocked, realizing the guard's bravado was unfounded. As the gun safety lever clicked off, the Yellow Pill zombie dog sprang up from below, causing both men to freeze in terror. The creature lunged at one, sinking its teeth into his hand. His scream echoed through the area as he desperately called out to his brother, Dao, who was already trying to escape. Realizing the futility of seeking help, Dao's panic escalated. Seizing the moment, Mo sprang into action with swift precision, neutralizing the remaining threats. Her movements were a blur of expertise as she kicked Dao in the face, sending him crashing to the ground. The sight of Mo's impressive combat skills left Jong with no doubt. Crossing her again would be a serious mistake. With the two hoodlums now restrained and struggling, Jong took a firm stance, his tone stern. He demanded answers, making it clear that if they wanted to avoid losing too much blood, they needed to reveal Lawo's whereabouts immediately. Meanwhile, Lawo strolled through the hallway where Jong had previously taken down zombies. He ordered Bion to collect the crystals from the undead's heads. Bion, however, was confused and suggested eating first as he was starving. Lawo, known for his cruelty even toward his own men, insisted that Bion focus on the task. To Lawo, these crystals were valuable and essential, though Bion saw them as worthless debris. Lawo struck Bion in the head, compelling him to work without further complaints. Lawo himself didn't fully understand the purpose of the crystals, but their frequent recovery from zombies intrigued him. The hidden uses of these crystals were a mystery to him, yet he was convinced of their significance. The scene shifted to the three girls resting in a safe room within the media center, having found temporary refuge. Lee, with eyes sharp with malevolence, opened her eyes after ensuring Teacher Pooh was sound asleep. She focused on Ling, rising quietly with a sharp shard in hand and a dark intent. Lee approached Ling with cold determination, feeling overshadowed and superior to Ling. With Zhong's support now on her side, Lee was set on eliminating her and seizing the resources that could secure her own survival. As she prepared to strike, the unexpected voice of Teacher Pooh startled her. A jolt of fear ran through Lee as she quickly hid the shard behind her back and turned to face the voice. She feigned innocence, pretending she needed to use the bathroom. Her desperation was apparent as she shuffled away with a wretched expression. Once inside the bathroom, Lee's composure shattered. Her chance to carry out her plan had slipped through her fingers, leaving her seething with rage and disappointment. Tears flowed freely as she struggled with her failed attempt. Her moment of despair was abruptly interrupted by a violent pounding on the bathroom door. The harsh sounds reverberated through the small space, intensifying her panic. Lee's heart raced as she realized her confrontation was slipping away, trapping her in a situation that threatened to expose her and undo everything she had tried to achieve. As she re-entered the room, she asked Teacher Pooh, who was trying to break down the door, what was happening. Ling, her voice trembling, assured her that the door was locked. The door held firm against the zombies, but a massive strike shattered it, sending splinters flying. The girls, now drenched in fear, realized with horror that ruthless criminals had breached their sanctuary. Panic surged as the intruders entered the room. The danger was palpable, and the girls were at the mercy of these merciless assailants. With a menacing grin, one of the criminals snatched a weapon from Ling. Her voice quivered with desperation as she demanded to know their intentions. The thug, puffing on a cigarette, sneered and grabbed her face, asking what she thought they were there for. Another young criminal approached Teacher Pooh, who shouted in alarm, demanding he keep his distance. Amidst the chaos, Lee saw an opportunity to escape and began to slip away. The gang leader, Dong, barked orders to capture her immediately. One of his men, appearing conflicted, reminded Dong that Lawo had only instructed them to kill Zhong and take the girls. Dong, his patience wearing thin, roared that Lawo wasn't present and they were to follow his orders now. He commanded them to pursue the fleeing Lee. A hefty criminal took off in pursuit, with one of his comrades warning him not to enjoy her alone. As the girls faced an escalating threat, their chances of escape dwindled. Teacher Pooh was gripped tightly around the waist by one of the intruders, who had shown an unsettling interest in her long ago. With chilling calmness, he told her not to be afraid and asked if she remembered him. Trembling, she demanded to know who he was. The man smirked, revealing that he had once been a student at the school and had attended her classes. She recognized him immediately as Bai, a notorious troublemaker known for his persistent and inappropriate advances. His history of harassment had made him a constant threat, and now he was finally acting on his dark intentions. Ling was forcibly restrained by another thug who recognized her from her online presence as a celebrity on Quo's platform. Both women were subjected to degrading treatment as the criminals reveled in their power and control, indulging in their cruel and despicable behavior. Meanwhile, Zhong had tightly bound two scoundrels after they revealed Lawo's identity and location. Mo suggested they return to the bureau to gather more people, but Zhong wasn't interested in that approach. He preferred a direct strike over a drawn-out plan. Mo warned him that Lawo had additional allies and that they should be prepared, but Zhong dismissed the need for extensive preparation. Although hesitant, Mo agreed to go with him. Curious about the key he carried, she asked its purpose. Zhong explained that the key represented more than just an object, it symbolized unlocking deeper mysteries and understanding the changes in their world. Puzzled, Mo questioned what he meant by unlocking the future. Zhong's response was cryptic but clear. The world had changed dramatically with the rise of undead mutants and crystals, disrupting the natural order beyond ordinary understanding. The key secrets would only be revealed when they were strong enough to grasp its true power. The scene shifted to the hefty criminal relentlessly pursuing Lee down a narrow corridor. His heavy steps echoed as he taunted her, threatening to break her limbs once he caught her. Cornered at the end of the hallway by a locked door, Lee glanced back to see his menacing figure approaching with a wicked grin. He grabbed her head with his large hands, declaring that unlike other girls, she wouldn't escape him. In this apocalyptic world, Lee tried to placate him with a mix of cunning and desperation. She vowed not to leave him or mock him. Her words seemed to catch him off guard, causing him to doubt her sincerity. Seizing the moment, Lee attempted to flatter him, praising his looks and claiming she would do anything for him. As she spoke, she placed his hand on her chest in a bold move. Despite her attempts to seduce and manipulate him, the hefty criminal remained unimpressed, calling her average-looking. Nonetheless, his loyalty to Dong drove him to drag her back to their hideout. As they returned, Lee's expression shifted to panic upon seeing Teacher Pooh in a dire state. Her clothes were torn, and she had been brutally mistreated. The hefty criminal mocked her distress, while Dong, observing the scene, remarked on Teacher Pooh's fierce resistance. Despite her attempts to fight back, including biting one of Dong's men and causing a bloody nose, Pooh had been severely abused. Lee was overcome with grief at the sight of her mentor's suffering. Dong then turned to the hefty criminal and noted that Lee had returned with him, hoping to join their group. Despite Teacher Pooh's horrific condition, Lee remained determined to join Dong's faction. Dong Chief asked her if she genuinely wanted to be part of their group, and Lee affirmed her commitment, saying she was willing to do anything required. Unexpectedly, Dong Chief pointed to Ling and told Lee to take care of her, revealing that Ling was her friend. This revelation shocked Ling, who couldn't believe Lee had become treacherous. Without hesitation, Lee approached Ling and slapped her face. Ling gasped in shock, tears streaming down her face. Enjoying the display, Dong Chief ordered Lee to slap Ling even harder. This was an act Lee had long desired, and she delivered each blow with increasing force. Ling's face grew redder with each slap, her cries mingling with anger and humiliation. She sobbed uncontrollably, calling Lee an evil monster, while Dong Chief's smile widened. Satisfied by the show of dominance, Lee pressed Ling's head down and remarked that the longer one looked at her face, the more repulsive it became. Dong Chief, standing confidently behind her, declared that Lee had now qualified. From this moment on, no one would dare to cause her trouble. The portly man, beaming with satisfaction, congratulated Lee and welcomed her into their group with enthusiasm, emphasizing that she was now officially one of them. Dong alerted his companions, revealing that they were once allies of the fourth brother. However, after the fourth brother had become a zombie, they were forced to join Lao and align themselves with him. The fourth brother, a member of the Axe Head Gang, was skilled in martial arts. In contrast, Lao was merely a troublemaker, as described by Dong's companions. They complained that Lao, known for his cunning, had taken all the valuable resources they had risked their lives to obtain. Moreover, Lao had ordered them to kill people but then vanished into the shadows without a trace. Dong expressed his frustration with Lao's deceitful behavior. He argued that in this apocalyptic world, everyone had the opportunity to become a ruler. There was no reason to live under someone else's rule or act as their subordinate. The atmosphere shifted as Dong's words resonated with the group. They began chanting, voicing their discontent with Lao's lack of loyalty and respect. They declared that from now on, they would follow Dong Zed as their leader. With unanimous agreement, they appointed Dong Zed as the new head of the gang. The mood turned as the hoodlums began plotting to eliminate Lao once and for all. They then moved to the cafeteria to set up an ambush, waiting for Lao's return. As Dong Chief entered the room, he was struck on the head by a bone, causing him to cry out in surprise. He demanded to know who had thrown the projectile. Zhong, who had been eating, was taken aback by Dong's presence. He casually mentioned that Dong had arrived just in time for their meal and that their luck seemed to be holding. Dong Chief, stunned and angered, saw that he had consumed the precious chicken they had reserved for Daeho. He demanded to know who Zhong was and what he was doing there. Zhong coolly responded that they had planned to kill Dong and now he had come right to their doorstep. Dong's suspicion grew that this might be the person the fifth brother wanted dead, wondering if his fellow criminals had failed in their mission. Reading Dong's confusion, Zhong revealed that he had already dealt with the two brothers sent to kill him and was now ready to confront Dong himself. Dong's subordinates, seething with anger, demanded whether they should kill Zhong immediately. However, the situation worsened when they pushed Ling out of the way. Dong Chief seized the opportunity to taunt Zhong, questioning if he was still so formidable. Mo, standing beside Dong Chief, could not help but curse Dong repeatedly. Dong Chief's mocking continued, growing more furious, but he remained resolute, insisting that the girl had no connection to him as they were merely using each other. He declared that Dong's filthy hands and vile words were no longer needed. The confrontation quickly escalated into a violent brawl. Zhong, with precise aggression, drove a dagger into Dong's arm, causing him to lose his composure. In a fit of rage, Dong ordered his men to kill Zhong all at once. One attacker lunged at Zhong first, but he deftly dodged the strike and countered with a powerful punch that knocked the assailant unconscious. Seeing this, Dong yelled for his men to attack Zhong immediately. Four of his subordinates surrounded him, and Dong signaled each one's movements, taunting them to distract and unnerve them. His trash-talking only served to heighten the chaos of the fight, making their attempts to subdue him more frantic and disorganized. One attacker lunged at Zhong with a punch, but Zhong's reflexes were lightning fast. He seized the assailant's arm, twisting it with a brutal roll that dislocated it with a sickening crack. The man howled in pain, crumpling to the ground. Meanwhile, another opponent managed to grab a bystander from behind, locking him in a vice-like grip. With a swift, punishing motion, he slammed the victim into the ground, pinning him down by his neck. The scene now turned to a frail, long-haired figure who trembled at the sight of Jong advancing toward him. However, the burly thug intent on confronting Jong shoved the weakling aside and drew a knife. The fat man faced Jong with eyes gleaming with malice. Jong darted aside with practiced ease, evading the initial slash and countering with a sharp blow to the fat man's shoulder. The strike had little effect on the robust adversary, who retaliated by swinging his knife viciously. Jong swiftly wrested the knife from the fat man's hand and, with a powerful, soaring kick, struck the giant squarely in the face. The force of the kick sent the thug crashing to the ground, unconscious. Watching the fight unfold, Dong realized the sheer strength Jong possessed. It was clear why Lao had instructed them to eliminate him. With only one opponent remaining, Dong drew out Teacher Pooh as a hostage, holding her tightly and warning him to surrender. He issued dire threats, saying that if his demands were not met, Teacher Pooh would pay the price. Dong insisted that they had done no wrong to her, but if action was taken, he would be responsible for her death. Behind him, Lee stood silently, having switched sides earlier. Her eyes were locked on Dong, her mind racing with strategies. As Dong shouted at her to kneel and pulled on Teacher Pooh's hair, a brick suddenly flew through the air, smashing Dong's face with a dull thud. He collapsed, stunned into an unexpected nap. Lee, having switched allegiances again, had thrown the brick. Despite her previous betrayal, her resolve to save Teacher Pooh was unwavering, driven by gratitude for the teacher's past kindness. Once the criminals were securely tied up with ropes, Lee untied Teacher Pooh, expressing her relief and happiness to find her unharmed. Ling, however, could barely contain her disdain and muttered that Lee was nothing more than a betrayer. Teacher Pooh, visibly upset, pointed out that Lee had just, clearly displeased, admonished Ling for her lack of gratitude towards Lee and Teacher Pooh, who had already endured enough. Ling retorted that she was new and unfamiliar with the events that had transpired. Jong, siding with Lee's parents, supported her role in saving Teacher Pooh, leaving Ling without allies to expose Lee's true nature. In a surprising turn, Ling embraced Lee, sobbing and lamenting how much she missed him for arriving so late. Her emotional display stirred jealousy in Mo and sparked a look of determined vengeance in Lee, who was on the verge of revealing her true intentions. Meanwhile, Lao Wo, observing the three-colored wheel, clutched a handful of crystals, his eyes narrowing with understanding. He now grasped the source of Jong's formidable strength and declared that Jong's survival was a challenge he fully intended to meet. A subordinate next to Lao Wo stared at the spinning wheel with a mix of astonishment and skepticism. "Can this big rock really draw rewards?" he muttered, his disbelief clear. Lao Wo, already irked, responded with a sharp punch to his head, silencing his incredulity. The wheel whirred and spun, coming to a halt with a sudden chime. The notification announced the acquisition of the profession of trained alchemist. Lao Wo's face twisted into a scowl of fury. The reward seemed like a joke. 20 crystals spent on what appeared to be a meaningless profession. Frustration boiled over, and he kicked Bion, barking orders for him to search the area for anything of real value. Unbeknownst to Lao Wo, his reckless use of crystals had triggered a mechanism that would release the remaining crystals, making the next draw significantly easier. At that moment, Bion returned, lugging a heavily loaded bag packed with items taken from Ling earlier. Lao Wo eagerly rifled through the contents. Snack packs, canned goods, and more were strewn about, but one item caught his eye, a vial labeled Primary Strengthening Medicine. The label promised rapid enhancements in physique, speed, and strength, though it came with severe side effects, including intense pain and potentially death for those unable to endure it. Being looked on in astonishment and bewildered by Lao Wo's familiarity with the medicine, his eyes lit up with a sudden realization. His new, trained alchemist profession must have given him insight into the potion's effects. He suspected that Jong had used a similar concoction to gain his impressive strength. Driven by a mix of curiosity and anger, he decided to test the potion himself. Without hesitation, he downed the entire vial in one gulp. Almost instantly, his eyes widened and his veins bulged as his body surged with newfound strength. Bion, alarmed by the transformation, began to move toward the door to call for help, but before he could escape, a massive fist crashed down in front of him, blocking his way. An enormous creature, reminiscent of a shadow serpent, roared menacingly. Lao Wo, determined to test his enhanced abilities, charged forward to confront the beast, eager to see if the potion had truly delivered the power it promised. Meanwhile, Jong and his team had returned to Shin's hideout. They unloaded their bags and sorted through the loot recovered from Lao Wo. Zhong needed to investigate further and went up to the upper floors, but found no one. Liang's urgent call from downstairs brought him back to the first floor, where chaos had erupted in the kitchen. Amidst the mess, a bloody handprint smeared across the wall caught his eye. Above it, written in blood, was the message, "Supermarket got the wheel." Zhong's heart sank as he realized this message could be a crucial lead, hinting at a possible clue or direction in their search. Lao Wo stood proudly over the defeated shadow serpent, basking in Beyond's admiration. He was ready to claim victory over the undead, confident they would soon fall before him. However, his triumph was short-lived. Upon arriving to find Dong and the others, he discovered Beyond tied up and learned that Dong Zed had been killed and his resources stolen. The betrayal ignited a furious rage in Lao Wo. He roared in anger, vowing to hunt down Zhong and kill him with his own hands. He swore to torture him until he begged for mercy, then finish him off by tearing him to shreds. Before he finished speaking, Zhong had already experienced a premonition. Standing behind him, Ling asked if he was okay, wondering why he had suddenly shut up. He explained that he had a strange premonition. Mo suggested he rest if tired, and Pooh advised him to drink water. Zhong mentioned that his companion Shin might be in danger and had left information behind, so they needed to act quickly, starting with the supermarket. Ling, feeling jealous, asked if Shin was his girlfriend, to which he replied that she was a good partner. This response pleased Ling, and she excitedly urged him to prepare to find her. Liang's jealousy over Shin was like a classic love triangle, just without the sparkles and dramatic background music. He reminded them to avoid disrupting him during the operation and emphasized that as teammates, they needed to contribute effectively. Before the operation, he carefully planned who should accompany him. He considered Ling intelligent and loyal, making her an excellent choice to support him in finding Shin. Mo, an expert in close combat, would assist in fighting. However, he questioned whether he should bring teacher Pooh. Pooh explained that she was skilled in healthcare and new medical treatments, so she could provide support from the backline. He agreed, but warned them not to be a burden, as he couldn't protect everyone. He asked the police officer if she would assist in the operation, and she readily agreed. They packed their bags and set off quickly. Zhong thought about the urgency of finding Shin and securing a new food source, noting that their current supplies would last only a few more days. Despite having many crystals, they couldn't buy much with them. Mo approached him, curious about his preoccupation. He explained that they would leave some items behind and only take what was necessary. Mo Sug suggested bringing essential supplies, cautioning that leaving items behind was unsafe. She proposed an idea that impressed him with her critical thinking, alleviating his concerns about the scarcity of resources. They proceeded to a police bureau truck, which Mo revealed had been specially transported by her boss. It was one of the bureau's best vehicles, armored, capable of hill climbing, and with a substantial load capacity. He thanked Mo, recognizing that the armored truck would be a significant asset to their mission. Meanwhile, La Wu, seething with rage, stormed out of the media center. Determined to kill Zhong and enraged by Dong and his team's betrayal, La Wu decided to leave the remaining companions behind and confront the bloodthirsty zombies alone. He was furious that they had dared to betray him and believed he could handle the zombies by himself. Their fate was sealed as he focused on his mission of vengeance against Zhong. Later, La Wu skillfully maneuvered Mo's military truck through the chaos, drifting around corners as the horde of undead barely slowed the vehicle. Their decaying bodies were no match for the truck's power. As he navigated through the turmoil, Pooh sighed in admiration, noting how Mo, a guard more capable than ordinary people, had secured such a formidable vehicle. Liang, on the other hand, felt a pang of jealousy, craving the opportunity to prove her worth and earn credit for her contributions. Liang's attention shifted to the map, realizing that Shin had failed to mark the supermarket locations, leaving them to navigate blindly. He suggested that after passing the intersection, they should hit the supermarkets one by one. But before he could finish, a horde of undead surged forward, not with their usual mindless aggression, but as if fleeing from something far more terrifying. Liang's sharp voice cut through the chaos, urging everyone to look at the side of the truck. An enormous mutated white ape had appeared, tearing through the zombie corpses like they were mere snacks. Liang's heart raced as he recognized the creature, a mutated white ape known for its immense strength and vicious temperament. Despite being only a level 1 fighter, Liang's past experiences with white apes gave him a flicker of hope. He ordered everyone to stay calm, but as the ape noticed them, he stomped on the gas, desperate to escape. Fate wasn't on their side. The truck veered sharply and crashed into an electric pole, jolting everyone inside. The giant white ape leaped onto the truck with a thunderous crash, its weight nearly toppling the vehicle. Liang and the others were thrown around inside the cabin, barely holding on. Through the shattered window, the ape's piercing red eyes locked onto Zhong, who fought to regain control of the truck. Despite his best efforts, the ape clung to the vehicle with relentless tenacity, its enormous hands gripping the metal. Realizing the situation was beyond his control, Liang made a split-second decision. "Mo, take the wheel," he barked, unbuckling his seatbelt. As Mo slid into the driver's seat, Liang swung the door open and launched himself at the ape, slashing wildly with his weapon. However, his attacks barely scratched the creature's thick hide. The ape's tail wrapped around him like a vice and flung him to the ground with bone-crushing force. Pain exploded through his body as he hit the pavement, his vision swimming. Mo brought the truck to a screeching halt, shouting Liang's name, but he was too dazed to respond. The white ape dismounted from the truck, its massive frame casting a shadow over Liang as it loomed above him. The ape roared in fury, its eyes glowing with murderous intent. It raised its fist, poised to deliver a devastating blow. Just then, a barrage of bullets shot past. Mo was firing, but her intervention only seemed to enrage the beast further. The white ape charged at Mo with a furious roar, sending Pooh and Liang into a panic. Mo fired relentlessly, but her shots were ineffective against the massive creature. The ape's rage intensified, and it swung a mighty punch at Mo, who narrowly dodged. The ape began to circle the truck, and Mo seized the opportunity to aim at its face. The white ape howled in fury, grabbing Mo and tossing her through the air. Its rage didn't end there. It seized the truck with its colossal hands, flipping it over and sending Pooh and Liang tumbling out. With a savage swipe, the ape clawed at Pooh's back, its intent clear. Liang, paralyzed with fear, could do nothing to help. As the situation reached its peak, Zhong and his dog appeared, charging at the white ape with a fierce howl. The massive and unwieldy ape struggled against the dog's relentless bites. Zhong took full advantage of the distraction. Mo, shouting his name, tossed him a gun. Renewed determination surged through him as he gripped the gun tightly and used his crafting skills to enhance it, increasing its penetration and stability by 20%. He noted with satisfaction the significant boost in firepower. In the midst of his efforts, the giant white ape grew agitated, grappling with his dog. With a powerful throw, the ape sent the dog flying, its jaws clamping down. Infuriated, the ape swung a massive fist at the dog, sending it into the air, and prepared to deliver a decisive blow. Quick on his feet, Zhong shouted at the beast, "Hey, ugly white furry monster, your weakness is here." He aimed carefully at the ape's vulnerable point and fired. The bullet struck precisely, leaving the beast no time to react. The white ape roared in pain as it crashed to the ground, its mutated muscles exposed by the shot. The strategic shot had struck the spine, hitting the white ape's critical weakness. The creature's death was swift, a testament to the enhanced ammunition's effectiveness. He marveled at how crucial the enhancements were. Without them, even his knowledge of the ape's vulnerability might not have secured the kill. As the fight concluded, a surge of triumph filled him. His 10 years of experience had proven invaluable, and his crafting skills had made the difference in this grueling battle. Ling worked diligently on disinfecting Pooh's wound. Despite Pooh enduring the sting of the alcohol, Ling urged her to hold on a bit longer. Suddenly, he flung open the truck door and was met with an awkward sight. Pooh, almost completely undressed, was receiving first aid from Ling. The scene was both urgent and uncomfortable, making everyone uneasy. Mo, noticing the situation, inquired about Pooh's condition. He reassured her that she was fine, with no major life-threatening injuries, just a scratch that needed some medicinal care. After handling Pooh's situation, he turned his attention to his dog, who had sustained significant injuries. Fortunately, the wounds weren't critical, but they were enough to impair the dog's mobility and effectiveness. He knew he needed to find medicine quickly to aid in the dog's recovery and resolved to search for something that could speed up the healing process. Ling noted that Pooh's wound was bleeding continuously and required significant anesthetics and medical tools to address it properly. He responded that while he could use his artisan skills to create stitching tools, acquiring anesthesia would be more challenging. Recalling a past experience of stitching wounds without anesthesia, he realized Pooh would likely struggle with the painful procedure. Determined to address both Pooh's and his dog's injuries, he planned to search for medical supplies and surgical resources in a nearby area with a private hospital. Ling then inquired about the supermarket and her friend Xin. He assured her that Xin was competent and could protect herself, emphasizing that she was destined to become an NSTAR veteran, which meant she would likely be safe. However, Mo disagreed with his plan and proposed splitting into two groups. He would take Pooh to find the necessary medicine, while she would head to the supermarket to locate Xin. He quickly rejected the idea, citing concerns about potential mutated beasts on the road and questioning whether it was wise to take such risks. He preferred to focus on the immediate medical needs and the safety of everyone involved. Mo responded firmly, insisting that he should not underestimate her abilities as a guard. She reminded him of her track record and asked if he had doubts about her capabilities. Momentarily at a loss for words, he eventually gave in, advising her to proceed cautiously. He explained that the noise from the wheel could attract zombies, potentially causing them to move towards the source of the sound. He advised her to remain vigilant as he waved goodbye, reflecting on past betrayals by teammates and hoping for a different outcome this time, though his optimism was tempered. Meanwhile, La Wu and Bion were speeding down the road on their bikes. La Wu, growing increasingly impatient with their progress, remarked that the stronger the wind, the better he felt. When Bion asked about their destination, La Wu explained that their careful calculations and analysis suggested Zhong would be searching for something specific. This meant Zhong was likely heading towards the most probable location. La Wu assured Bion with renewed confidence that he knew exactly where they needed to go, despite Bion's repeated questions about their destination. He explained that they had lost valuable resources, which would soon be depleted, so their next logical stop would be the supermarket. Supermarkets, he noted, typically held a wide array of resources essential for survival and travel. As they arrived at the area's largest supermarket, UUA Supermarket, La Wu approached it with determination. Upon reaching the entrance, Bion cautioned him to be careful, noting the potential presence of undead inside. La Wu dismissed the warning with a wave, having just obtained a new job and having spent half the day searching. Upon entering, they found the supermarket had been looted. To his dismay, while inspecting the store, a packet of flour tumbled from its hiding place. Looking up, they were startled to see an undead creature looming before them. Its terrifying appearance caused La Wu to pause, but it seemed to be searching for something rather than attacking. They cautiously followed the undead, hearing unsettling noises as they moved. Soon, they discovered a group of undead gathered around something, causing La Wu's excitement to grow. Meanwhile, Mo navigated the city streets with the confidence of a seasoned officer. Familiar with the layout, she approached a nearby supermarket, checking its exterior before cautiously venturing inside. After a thorough search, she found the shelves bare. The store had been stripped clean. Mo recalled his warning about the wheel attracting zombies, but noted the unusual quiet of this location. With only one major supermarket left in the area, UUA Supermarket, she wondered what Zhong was up to. At the same time, Zhong and his team arrived at the hospital, racing against time. Pooh was on the brink of collapse, her wound bleeding profusely. Ling, observing the severity of the blood loss, urged him to hurry, fearing that Pooh's life might be in jeopardy if they didn't act quickly. He focused on locating the essential medical supplies, hoping the medicine and injection rooms would have what they needed. In his frantic haste, he barely evaded a colossal tail that crashed down nearby. His eyes widened in horror as he faced a grotesque sight, a massive green tail attached to the skeletal remains of a mutated zombie crocodile. The overwhelming presence of this new, formidable mutant made him question why he was encountering so many powerful enemies today. As he battled these nightmarish threats, a surge of desperation overcame him. From a safe distance, he observed the massive hybrid of a tortoise and alligator. Unlike the yellow pill or the white ape, this creature was in a league of its own, far more formidable than any mutated beast he had encountered in his previous life. It had taken him nearly a decade to realize that these monsters were not native to Earth. They had existed long before the apocalypse and were known as guardian beasts. Drawn to areas with unique resources or hidden rewards, these creatures fiercely protected them. The tortoise alligator was a level 2 guardian beast, an opponent he knew he couldn't defeat with his current strength. However, he believed his skills might allow him to slip past the beast and retrieve the necessary resources. Without wasting a moment, he sprinted back to the armored truck. Seeing his hurried return, Ling immediately asked if he had found the medicine. He didn't answer but went straight for the weapons, rummaging through the supplies. Concerned, Ling asked why he was arming himself and whether a monster was inside the hospital. He confirmed her suspicions, admitting that a powerful beast was lurking within. He reassured her that he could handle it alone and instructed her to stay with Pooh and continue tending to her wounds. Despite his calm demeanor, Ling couldn't shake her unease. Watching him gear up with weapons and equipment made her anxious, but she trusted his judgment. Meanwhile, he knew the situation was dire. The thought of facing a guardian beast with his current abilities was daunting, but he was determined to retrieve the supplies they desperately needed. He planned to restrain the guardian beast, knowing he needed every advantage he could get. He decided to use specially crafted arrows, enhancing them with his craftsmanship skill, which had proven invaluable before. This skill allowed him to significantly strengthen weapons, improving their penetration and control. He reminded himself that, while his artisan skill was still at a beginner level, it could enhance an item's quality if he had materials of equal quality. This process effectively doubled the arrow's power, much like it had previously amplified bullets against the white ape. This skill wasn't just about changing the form of objects, it fundamentally increased their quality and toughness, almost like wielding a form of magic. After painstakingly working on the arrows and bow, he strengthened them into weapons of the next level. He also needed a large metal net to hold the beast in place, drawing on a past memory of a technique known as mosaic fusion, which combined two materials while preserving their strengths. He decided to fuse iron wire with a green net, hoping the combination would be strong enough to deal with the tortoise alligator. He carefully combined the materials, applying his craftsmanship skill to make the net as tough and resilient as possible. With all preparations complete, he set out to lay his trap. He charged forward with determination, pulling the bowstring and launching the reinforced net toward the tortoise alligator. The net successfully entangled the beast, wrapping around its massive form. The guardian beast let out a furious roar, thrashing about in an attempt to free itself. His heart raced as he saw that the net had temporarily caught the creature's tail, holding it back. Wasting no time, he dashed into the medicine warehouse, scanning the shelves filled with abundant supplies. Relief surged through him, knowing that with these materials, Pooh's surgery would have a high chance of success. However, he knew better than to assume the fight was over. The tortoise alligator was a formidable opponent, and it wasn't long before it began to break free. The beast's enormous strength rendered the metallic net and arrows ineffective, snapping them with a mighty thud. It roared again, its fury undiminished, and began to stealthily advance toward him, intent on reclaiming its territory. Quickly, he gathered as many medical supplies as possible. The growing sense of danger was impossible to ignore as the beast's heavy footsteps approached. Realizing he was running out of time, he secured the last supplies with his mind racing for his next move. Meanwhile, Fifth Brother, who had ruthlessly cleared out every undead in the supermarket, surveyed the eerily silent area with grim satisfaction. The bustling aisles were now empty, save for the remnants of his latest battle. His gaze fell upon a gleaming brand new wheel in the corner, reigniting a spark of hope. Without hesitation, he ordered Bion to collect the crystals from the fallen corpses. Bion executed the task efficiently and returned with a pile of crystals. However, upon inspecting the wheel, Fifth Brother's frustration mounted. It required 10 crystals to operate, but Bion had only gathered 9. The missing crystal was a glaring oversight, and the idea of waiting for another undead to appear was almost unbearable. Seeing the storm brewing in his leader's eyes, Bion nervously suggested that the wheel might attract more undead if they gave it some time. They only needed one more crystal, he said, trying to placate Fifth Brother with the hope of additional undead. This attempt at reassurance only ignited Fifth Brother's rage. His patience snapped, and with a roar of fury, he struck Bion across the face, sending him stumbling. Fifth Brother's eyes blazed with disdain as he surveyed the scene. He erupted in anger, condemning Bion as utterly useless, a worthless piece of trash who couldn't even manage something as simple as gathering crystals. Meanwhile, Mo approached the supermarket, her instincts on high alert. The unnerving silence that greeted her was a stark contrast to the usual groaning of the undead, replaced by an unsettling calm. As she carefully stepped inside, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly amiss. The silence felt like a heavy, oppressive blanket, making her wonder if all the zombies had been wiped out or if something even more sinister was unfolding. Ling heard the ominous roar of the tortoise alligator echoing from outside as it relentlessly pounded on the door of the medicine room. Unable to stand by, she bolted toward the hospital, her heart pounding in her chest, her voice carrying an urgent plea as she called out for him, praying fervently that he was unharmed. When she arrived, the sight before her sent a chill down her spine. The tortoise alligator was furiously battering the tightly locked door. Fear gripped her as she questioned what monstrous creature might be inside. Inside the room, Leon was painfully aware of his dire situation. He knew the strength of a level 2 guardian beast and recognized that such formidable foes were not easily overcome. The beast had already entered a berserk state, and Leon grimly realized that he was likely trapped for some time, with the genuine possibility of facing a brutal defeat. Outside, he quickly deduced he had no means of escape. Determined to help, Ling resolved to divert the monster's attention. Her eyes fell upon 3 enormous eggs nearby, and a plan began to form. Meanwhile, Leon saw Ling from his corner, his heart sinking with fear and frustration. How had this reckless girl ended up in such perilous danger, only adding to his burdens? The tortoise alligator, relentless in its assault, finally succeeded in breaking down the door. Its massive head lunged forward, aiming directly for Leon's face, and the room echoed with the sounds of impending danger. Despite her fear, Ling quickly honed in on the tortoise alligator's eggs. Determined, she sprinted toward them, her voice rising frantically to draw the creature's attention. Standing her ground in front of the menacing beast, she braced herself as it roared and charged toward her with terrifying force. Desperate to protect her, Jong rushed forward, his voice cracking as he shouted for Ling to run. But instead of fleeing, Ling made a bold move, shoving one of the eggs off its perch. Leon's heart plummeted as he realized the grave danger she had just put herself in. He screamed at her to get out as the alligator's focus shifted to the rolling egg. In a heartbeat, the creature abandoned its chase of her, redirecting its attention to save its precious offspring from smashing against the wall. Seizing the brief window of opportunity, Ling attempted to escape but stumbled over a rock, nearly falling. Jong was at her side instantly, grabbing her hand tightly, and together they fled the scene. Their frantic footsteps echoed in the air. As they ran, Ling glanced back and saw that the tortoise alligator had stopped its chase, its attention fully consumed by the safety of its eggs. Breathless but alert, Jong explained that the creature wouldn't stray far from its offspring, knowing its instincts would keep it close to the nest. He thought they might finally be clear, but an uneasy feeling lingered in his chest. Despite their narrow escape, the threat still loomed, and he couldn't shake the worry gnawing at him. Anger and concern boiled over as Jong harshly grabbed Ling by the arms, demanding to know if she had a death wish. He reminded her of the peril she had narrowly avoided. Ling winced, telling him he was hurting her, but Jong didn't relent, insisting that the pain was nothing compared to the risk she had taken. She defended her actions, saying she had acted impulsively, wanting to save him. Still frustrated, Jong told her she didn't need to worry about him and that he didn't need her to save him. Tears welled up in Ling's eyes, though he remained stern. A silent gratitude flickered within him for her courage. Meanwhile, back at H supermarket, Mo sifted through the remnants of chaos and soon discovered the wheel. Her attention quickly shifted to the unsettling sight of numerous zombie corpses scattered around, the sheer number raising questions in her mind. But her thoughts were interrupted when Fifth Brother emerged from the shadows, a smug smile tugging at his lips. He noted that the wheel hadn't needed to wait for the undead, instead, it had lured in this younger woman. To his amusement, she was a police officer, but Mo's resolve only hardened at his words. Unfazed by his smug demeanor, she steeled herself for the inevitable confrontation, her eyes narrowing with cold determination. She had no intention of letting these men enjoy what they believed to be a stroke of luck and prepared for battle. On the other side, Jong meticulously tended to Poo's wounds. His hands moved with practiced precision as he stitched her up, each careful motion designed to ensure her recovery. He reassured her that once the anesthetic wore off, she would likely feel some pain, though the discomfort would gradually fade. Poo's face flushed red at the thought, and she asked with a hint of worry whether the injury would leave a scar. Jong chuckled softly, telling her that keeping her life intact was the real blessing. With the stitches completed, he suggested she take some time to rest and recover. As Jong was preparing to leave, Ling approached, concern for Poo evident. However, the silence was abruptly broken by the loud rumbling of Ling's stomach. The sound was both surprising and embarrassing. With a sheepish grin, Jong suggested they take a break to grab a bite to eat before meeting up with Mo. Despite his fear, the subordinate quickly rushed over to help and lifted him up. Together, they fled the supermarket, disappearing from view. Mo turned to Jong, questioning why he had let them go so easily. Jong, with calm resolve, replied that those two would soon meet their end without him needing to dirty his hands. He was confident their fate was already sealed. As they watched their adversaries walk away, Jong turned back to Mo, his concern evident. He asked how she was feeling after their intense encounter. Mo reassured him that with some rest, her injury would heal. Jong, a mix of relief and humor in his voice, noted how fortunate she was that her bones weren't broken. Mo, with a sly smirk, teased that a police officer's ribcage could withstand more than just a few punches. Their shared light-hearted moment eased the tension between them. With the mood lightened, Jong gestured towards the direction of the wheel Shin had mentioned earlier. This shift in focus hinted at a potential turn in their journey, suggesting a brighter prospect ahead. Meanwhile, La Wu and Bion walked side by side, their conversation seemingly friendly as they sought comfort in their shared predicament. La Wu muttered curses under his breath about Jong, expressing frustration over how he had been left crippled. He lamented missed opportunities and wished he had killed Jong when he had the chance. Despite his physical pain and bitterness, La Wu was resolute in his determination to rest, recover, and eventually exact his revenge. Suddenly, Bion halted and shifted the tone of their conversation. Speaking earnestly, he confessed to La Wu that he needed to understand what it meant to truly share both enjoyment and suffering. He revealed that, despite following La Wu through countless dangers since the Zhong River, he had never experienced genuine satisfaction or pleasure under his leadership. This unexpected revelation surprised La Wu, making him pause to consider Bion's words. The subordinate questioned why only Lawu got to eat meat, while the rest of them struggled for soup. He pointed out that someone like him, who had been loyal for so long, shouldn't be treated as an underling for life. Realizing his mistake, Lawu tried to placate Bion by addressing him as Big Brother and urging him not to do anything rash, fearing the situation might turn against him. But Bion had already made up his mind. He grabbed Lawu's broken arm and twisted it cruelly, taunting him with the reality of his situation. Bion demanded that Lawu hand over all the crystals, promising to help keep them safe while suggesting that Lawu stay behind to recover. Both knew, however, that there was no safe place left. Standing on a narrow street, they were suddenly surrounded by zombies. Desperate, Lawu begged Bion to save him, even offering all the crystals in exchange for his life. But Bion coldly refused, stating there was no way to escape with the crystals. In a heartless move, Bion abandoned Lawu, leaving him to be devoured by the approaching zombies. Lawu could do nothing but scream in terror as the monsters descended upon him, ending his life brutally and tragically. His cries echoed through the night, catching YS attention. Fear gripped her as she wondered if Zhong and the others were in trouble. To her relief, Zhong soon appeared carrying an injured Mo in his arms. He reassured Ling that Mo was hurt, but they needed to find a safe place to stay for the night. Ling mentioned hearing the cries earlier and realized they must have come from the two people who fled the supermarket. She regretted not running them down with the vehicle, knowing how evil they were. Later that night, they found a secure spot to rest. Zhong and Ling stayed awake to keep watch while the other girls slept. Ling asked if they should hide the wheel to prevent others from using it. Zhong explained that while the wheel's position could be moved, once the news about it spread, it would likely spark fierce battles. However, they had already gathered most of the rewards, including enhancement medicines, immune boosters, a beginner's rank enhanced metal spirit necklace, and a silver shield. Zhong felt grateful for the workers who helped him collect these items, which allowed him to quickly obtain them. Ling placed the necklace around her neck, admiring its beauty. Zhong jokingly reminded her that the necklace wasn't just decoration but an essential tool. Ling, slightly embarrassed, retorted that accessories were useless against zombies, though she still found the necklace appealing. Zhong sighed, reflecting on the fleeting nature of their situation. He realized the importance of unity and acting together to survive. He admitted to Ling that he wasn't entirely altruistic in saving them. He wanted them to become his allies. He needed their trust and to prove their capabilities, knowing that only then could they grasp the power that would secure their future. Mo and Ling stood beside Zhong, bewildered by his revelation. Zhong took a deep breath and began to explain, stressing the significance of what he was showing them. He held up the fortification medicines and one of the rewards spun from the wheel. These medicines, he explained, were designed to enhance a person's physical capabilities, boosting muscular strength, speed, and even improving the body's metabolism and immunity. Mo quickly grasped the implications and asked if these enhancements were akin to superpowers. Zhong shook his head, clarifying that it wasn't quite that dramatic. The medicine provided essential fortification, capable of improving bodily functions by 20 to 30%. This enhancement would make it significantly easier to handle ordinary undead threats. Still feeling uncertain, Ling muttered that even a 20% increase might not be sufficient given her current state. Zhong reassured her, explaining that the medicine's value lay in its ability to push beyond one's limits and add that extra 20%. He encouraged Ling not to underestimate her potential and to recognize the boost the medicine could provide. Mo, still skeptical, asked if this was the reason behind his impressive strength. Zhong confirmed that it was. Certainly, she pointed out Zhong's deep understanding of the apocalypse and his skills that went beyond standard police duties, leading her to question his true identity. Ling agreed, noting that Zhong had always seemed out of place, as if he had adapted seamlessly to the world of the undead from the moment they met him. Mo pressed further, demanding to know if Zhong had any insight into the cause of the apocalypse, sensing that his true nature might be revealed. Zhong quickly redirected the conversation, explaining that his information came from Shin and suggested they ask her directly for answers. This deftly avoided any direct revelations about his past, which he could not disclose. To Zhong's surprise, Ling accepted this explanation without hesitation, commenting on how special Shin must be. Zhong was taken aback by their readiness to accept his diversion, realizing his attempt to deflect had been more successful than expected. Ling then inquired about the medicine's potency and possible side effects. Zhong acknowledged the risks, explaining that carelessness could lead to severe consequences, such as deadly bleeding from all 7 orifices. He reminded them that benefits and dangers often went hand in hand and left the decision up to them. Ling was shocked by the potential dangers, but Mo, displaying her usual bravery and determination, stood firm and asked to try it. Zhong handed her the medicine, commending her courage but warning that the pain of evolution could be excruciating for most people. He advised her to prepare herself and consider taking it the next day. Seeing Mo's resolve, Ling found her own determination, realizing she couldn't continue to burden the team. Feeling a weight lift from her shoulders, she asked Zhong for the medicine as well. Zhong agreed, but emphasized that both should wait until the next day to take it, allowing time to prepare adequately. He also advised Ling to dress more practically, pointing out that her fancy attire wasn't ideal for action. Her eyes widened at his bluntness. Meanwhile, Teacher Pooh, trying to settle down for the night, seemed envious of the commotion. She stirred and asked them to keep the noise down, needing her rest. Zhong, however, remained vigilant, knowing there was important business ahead. He stood guard outside with his dog, maintaining a watchful eye. In the dead of night, a figure emerged from the darkness. Startled, Zhong shouted and grabbed his army knife, charging toward the intruder. To his surprise, it was Ling. Confused, Zhong demanded to know why she was outside and not sleeping. Ling explained she was feeling scared. Zhong assumed she was having second thoughts about the medicine and asked if she regretted her decision. To his shock, Ling embraced him tightly, revealing that it wasn't regret but fear driving her. The thought of possibly dying after taking the medicine and never seeing him again kept her awake. Her fear was palpable, and Zhong, though surprised, felt sympathy for her. Sensing Ling's genuine fear, Zhong spoke earnestly. He explained that obtaining power wasn't always a matter of luck and that having solid abilities meant he wouldn't let her go easily. He invited her to join him in fighting for his goals and asked if she would still stand by him if given the chance. Touched by his sincerity, Ling admitted she understood and appreciated his offer. She knew he had saved her life and promised to support him. Her fear seemed to dissipate, leaving her resolute. Zhong felt a swell of pride at her response. Zhong then asked Mo if she would support Ling. Mo, with her usual straightforwardness, inquired about his plans. Zhong explained that, barring unforeseen circumstances, he intended to return to the hospital he had visited and head south through the city. Mo declined to join him, stating she had other matters to attend to. Zhong accepted her decision, feeling her absence would weaken his team but reassured her that his promise to give her strength still stood. Mo assured him she would return quickly once her tasks were completed and, if all went smoothly, head to Pearl Lake. She handed him a set of bullets, noting their importance. Zhong acknowledged their value and said he would have asked for them if she hadn't offered them. As morning broke, everyone gathered outside, ready to begin the day with the fortification medicine. The three of them swallowed the medicine moments earlier and were immediately hit by its effects, feeling worse than ever and unable to speak. Zhong reassured them that their condition would improve soon and, once their strength was restored, they would be ready to hunt zombies. He cautioned them to avoid provoking too many zombies and to be especially careful around crystal or mutated zombies, advising them to escape if they encountered any. Zhong then prepared to head to the hospital for his important business. As he approached the hospital, memories from his past life resurfaced. He recalled a story about this place. It was once the site where people discovered 3 powerful guardian beasts. These creatures wreaked havoc, killing many nearby survivors due to their immense strength. Eventually, a level 6 superhuman soldier intervened, defeating the beasts and acquiring a map and an egg from one of the monsters. The map was renowned for its use in crafting blade-type weapons. Shortly after, many members of the superhuman army were seen wielding exquisite silver-colored battle swords. Zhang was now resolute in claiming both the map and the egg. Zhong cleared the undead-infested area to ensure no interruptions while he pursued his target. With the area secure, he began his final preparations. Reflecting on his previous encounter with the tortoise alligator, Zhong remembered how unprepared he had been. His arrows lacked the necessary power, and although his pistol had more firepower than a bow, it was still insufficient. Determined to enhance his effectiveness, Zhong used the sharp claws he had obtained from a lizard to transform standard ammunition into armor-piercing rounds. By applying embedded magic to both the bullets and claws, he significantly boosted their penetration and lethality. He instructed Yellow Pill to stay behind and alert him if any undead approached. With everything set, Zhong took a deep breath and leaped forward, heading straight for the guardian beast with his newly fortified weaponry. The tortoise alligator was lazily resting when it suddenly sensed a human presence. Recognizing Zhong's familiar form, the beast tensed and prepared to strike. It lunged forward, but Zhong had anticipated this move and had set up a strategic trap. The creature's fury ignited when it spotted a red cloth, a decoy he had placed. Seizing the distraction, Zhong swiftly took a shot. The bullet drove through the beast's tough hide and penetrated its formidable skeleton. Furious, the tortoise alligator retaliated with a massive tornado claw strike. Zhong, however, was quick on his feet and dodged with precision. Standing his ground, he brandished his Nepo army knife and targeted the creature's tail. The strike jolted the beast, lifting it toward Zhong's face. Zhong capitalized on the moment, leaping and driving his knife into the creature's upper jaw. With the knife firmly lodged in its mouth, Zhong's gaze locked onto the exposed throat of the monster. He took a deep breath, muttered, "This ends now," and tightened his finger on the trigger of his pistol. A final, decisive shot rang out, sealing the creature's fate. Zhong then began searching the surrounding area, quickly locating the coveted map. The map detailed 3 distinct ranks: Frontier Rank, Dancing Sand, and the rare Moonlight Battlefield, marked with a purple tier. It came with both passive and active skills, promising valuable enhancements for their journey. Zhong recalled that offensive skills had been prohibitively expensive during the first 5 years of the apocalypse. Although prices had decreased over time, they remained among the costliest items. Weapons and equipment with skills were impressive, but the Moonlight Battlefield sword, with its dual skills, was scarce and valuable, nearing historical rank in price. However, the map required nearly impossible materials, about 1,000 rank 5 magic crystals. With his current resources, Zhong knew he had little hope of crafting it soon. Despite the challenges, Zhong was determined to find a way to craft the Frontier Moon skill, knowing that the Dancing Sand and Moonlight Battlefield ranks could be acquired with enough money. Resolute, he reminded himself of his unique position as a reborn and dismissed any fear of obstacles. Turning his attention to a new discovery, Zhong found a valuable item called Small Evolution Medicine among the remains of the tortoise alligator. While this medicine could significantly enhance human physicality, Zhong was curious about its effects on pets. Would it enable them to evolve as well? He called his dog, Yellow Pill, who was lazily lounging nearby, urging it to come over quickly. Zhong was eager to test the evolution medicine on his pet, hoping it would boost its strength. His determination to leverage every advantage was unwavering. Yellow Pill eagerly bounded over, ready to try the new medicine. Zhong and his dog shared the homemade pot, and soon Zhong felt his strength and spirit recovering rapidly, more so than with level 1 superhuman medicine. He instructed Yellow Pill to raise its head and pay attention as it consumed the tortoise alligator's egg and meat. A golden crystal emerged on the dog's head, indicating the activation of a new ability. Zhong asked Yellow Pill to demonstrate its newly acquired skills. The dog leaped up, and its fur instantly transformed into sharp blades, shooting in targeted directions and embedding fur blades into the opposite wall. Zhong was amazed to discover that the dog's innate ability was a fur attack known as Secret Needle Barrage. However, he soon noticed that Yellow Pill's fur had disappeared, leaving the dog looking different. Zhong consoled the dog, acknowledging that despite its changed appearance, its skill power remained impressive. He then instructed Yellow Pill to finish the rest of the food and save the other 2 portions for later. With that task done, Zhong moved to a nearby car to continue crafting weapons. He needed to make the most of his time, so he began working on the Frontier Moon weapon using Neo's army knife, the tortoise alligator's claws and teeth, and a level 2 magic crystal. After activating his artisan skill, the car was transformed into an extraordinarily sharp blade. Zhong tested the blade with a light swing, slicing through a nearby metal pillar with ease. After successfully crafting the weapons, Zhong created additional ones for his groupmates, focusing on strengthening their combat abilities to ensure they were well prepared for future challenges. After a while, Zhong returned to Liang's location with the remaining essence of the tortoise alligator egg and meat. He asked if Mo had already left and inquired about their health and any changes in their strength. Liang replied that they still had the cause and that dealing with the monster hadn't been difficult. She noted that they could now easily handle zombies, and with a hint of irony, added that she didn't understand why Pew was so scared of them. Liang was slightly annoyed by Zhong's comment about their shared discomfort and nausea. She clarified that it was simply a matter of getting accustomed to it, noting that the initial experience was always the toughest. Despite her attempt to downplay it, Zhong felt a deep satisfaction. His final investment had seemingly paid off. He handed over the egg essence and observed their surprised reactions as they inquired about the food that could enhance their strength. In his mind, Zhong was already planning for the future. Once they endured the effects of this strengthening fluid, he intended to head to Pearl Lake, convinced that obtaining whatever was there would be crucial for his next steps. Although Zhong had given them the essence from the first egg, both Ling and Pew, being Mills, consumed the second egg as well. This left Zhong with only 1 tortoise alligator egg, which he needed to preserve carefully for future use. As he observed Yellow Pill, Pooh remarked on the drastic change in the dog's appearance, noting its new unattractiveness. She compared it to how some girls might worry about gaining weight after eating a lot, but acknowledged that the transformation had significantly enhanced Yellow Pill's physique. Zhong then called Ling over, intending to give her an advanced whip. He wanted her to try it out and see if it suited her. Ling eagerly accepted the whip and tested it immediately. Flurries of blue light flashed intermittently, and the ground cracked beneath its force. Ling felt a surge of excitement, realizing that the whip seemed tailor-made for her. It merged seamlessly with her movements, and she felt a strong connection to it. She mentioned her previous studies in sports and now felt confident that this whip would be a valuable asset in assisting Zhong. Turning to Pugh, Zhong asked what kind of weapon she wanted. Feeling tense, Pugh mentioned she also wanted a gun, but hadn't decided on the type yet. Zhong advised her not to rush the decision, noting that it was normal for someone who had only used a kitchen knife in peaceful times to be uncertain about selecting a new weapon. Ling suddenly reminded Zhong that it was time to head to Pearl Lake. Zhong acknowledged the reminder but explained that their previous preparations were for the upcoming operation. He warned that the journey might be fraught with danger, including encounters with powerful mutants, large numbers of undead, and possibly even hostile humans. He asked if the girls were sure they wanted to join him. Ling, eager to assist, was enthusiastic about going, but Pooh remained uncertain about her usefulness on the mission and left the decision up to Zhong. Zhong dismissed her concerns, stating they would proceed together. He had previously mentioned the potential dangers but had not yet revealed the possible rewards of their success. With that settled, they began their journey. As they traveled in the car, Zhong's thoughts drifted back 10 years to his past life. After consuming all the food and drinks at home, he had finally mustered the courage to venture outside. The silence was eerie, but soon, monster roars echoed from all directions, even from the rooftops as creatures leaped down towards him. He saw the streets filled with undead and screamed loudly before running frantically. Surprisingly, the undead did not attack him, but instead moved towards the source of the bright light and sound. Deciding to return home, he watched as the city descended into chaos and exploded. Only through survivors' accounts did he gradually learn what had transpired that day. At Pearl Lake, Zhong and his group encountered a peculiar wheel floating in the water. Unlike traditional wheels, this one displayed a single image, a gold ingot. All that was required to activate it was a level 1 magic crystal. Once engaged, the wheel operated like a dungeon system, providing mission hints and previews of potential rewards. These rewards included various evolution medicines, mystical weapons, profession scrolls, and unique concoction methods, essentially everything one could hope for. The outcome of past battles remained shrouded in mystery, with participants either perishing or vanishing, though some survivors had become incredibly powerful over time. Finally, arriving at the location, they stepped out of the car with anticipation. They were on the brink of accessing numerous powerful items that could potentially make them the most formidable forces in the city. Meanwhile, 10 hours earlier, in the lobby of a logistics company in Honghai, CEO Li found himself surrounded by soldiers in camouflage uniforms, their grim gun barrels aimed directly at him. Captain Y inquired if Li had taken enough time to consider their proposition. Puzzled, Li questioned if it meant that should he refuse to comply, he and his comrades would have to bid farewell to this world. Li silently analyzed his situation. With 3 level 1 fighters by his side and 11 guns at his disposal, he wondered why he was forced to face these military personnel at such a critical moment. He pondered if more time could have changed his circumstances and noted that the young soldier beside Captain Y already seemed to be a level 2 evolver. Captain Y responded, stating that if they did not join the military's operation, they would not allow any unforeseen factors to jeopardize their plan. At that moment, one of Li's subordinates, evidently concerned, asked if they were genuinely prepared to engage in combat with the soldiers, but Li quickly silenced him. Captain Y then outlined the terms, assuring them that no effort would be wasted pointlessly. He emphasized that obedience would be rewarded and that even if Li did not trust him personally, he should at least place some faith in the military uniform. Wang Ding, who stood behind Captain Y, interjected, suggesting that after this mission, CEO Li might attain a level of power comparable to his own. He questioned why Li would be willing to forfeit such an opportunity. Though reluctant, Li had to acknowledge the reality of his situation. The military's overwhelming strength, advanced weaponry, and self-sufficiency led Li to make the tough decision to cooperate with them. Despite this, Captain Y did not extend his hand to seal the agreement with Li. Instead, Ding expressed hope for future progress together. Li then asked Captain Y if he could finally reveal the details of their operation. In a measured tone, Captain Y explained that they had received intelligence about a special monster expected to appear at Pearl Lake. He mentioned that everyone was eager to compete for it and had strategically arranged an underground outpost nearby to guard something known as the Wheel. As Captain Y spoke, Qin Xiaobian informed him that time was running short. Captain Y's voice crackled through the radio, assuring Qin that he would arrive soon and instructing him to keep a close watch over the wheel. Meanwhile, a pair of binoculars remained fixed on everything occurring near the wheel, scrutinizing the surroundings with meticulous care. Zhong, sitting atop the truck, noted that the group was almost fully assembled. He jumped down and asked if everyone was ready for the operation. He instructed Ling to take the radio and find a hiding spot once the operation began. Ling was to report immediately if she spotted a monster about 1 meter tall carrying a gold bag. Pooh was assigned to observe the area and provide real-time updates on the combat situation, paying particular attention to the movements of the small monster. Zhong planned to set up an ambush near the bank and emphasized to Pooh that she must report to him immediately if the little monster's movements were detected so he could converge on the location. Zhong reassured Pooh that her position would be relatively safe and advised her to retreat if the situation became uncontrollable. He also suggested that if the opportunity arose, she could find a high vantage point to report on the battle and the little monster's position. Pooh, understanding the instructions, pointed to a nearby building and asked if it would be a suitable spot. Zhong agreed, telling her to wait there for them. Zhong then reiterated the importance of reporting immediately upon discovering the target. He warned that while the small monster lacked any special abilities, it was extremely crafty and could summon a horde of mutated creatures, making it crucial that no one acted alone without warning. Suddenly, a massive light burst forth from the direction of Pearl Lake. Zhong immediately recognized that the wheel had been activated, signaling the official appearance of the treasure monster. According to the plan, he urged his team to move quickly. The treasure pot began to emit an intense, blinding light that temporarily robbed everyone of their sight. As their vision gradually returned, Qin Xiao was the first to spot a small, one-eyed monster standing atop the treasure pot, eyeing the group with keen interest. The creature reached for a greenish-blue conch shell hanging at its waist and began to blow into it, producing an ancient, eerie sound that reverberated through the air. This unsettling noise sent a chill down Xiao Qin's spine, filling him with an overwhelming sense of foreboding. As anticipated, the undead within the city who heard the conch call went berserk, rushing toward its source in a frenzied mass. Meanwhile, the soldiers maintained their disciplined formations, ready to move out at a moment's notice. Captain Y, with binoculars in hand, kept a close watch on the situation unfolding around Pearl Lake. Despite his growing concern, his staff officer quickly reported the latest developments. From our position, Lee's team reached the designated spot at 2 o'clock. Pooh's team also arrived at their assigned location at 10 o'clock. However, Xiao's team, positioned at 12 o'clock, has completely disappeared from radar, and we've lost all contact with them. Additionally, unknown forces have been detected at 9 o'clock and 4 o'clock, their numbers ranging from dozens to hundreds. Large swarms of mutated creatures have been spotted advancing toward our teams from multiple directions at high speed. Our forces are now surrounded by a vast number of undead. Captain Y, smiling with a mix of determination and dark humor, addressed his men. We're at the center of the city, and hadn't we been surrounded by zombies from the beginning? There's no real surprise here. With renewed courage, he called out to his soldiers, reminding them of their purpose. I could have led you into the tomb of the dead. Look around, the mutants are converging from all directions. I know many of you are worried about your families, feeling fear and hesitation. But why are you still here? What drove you to put on these uniforms in the first place? Captain Y shared his own struggles, revealing that he, too, came from his hometown and faced the same fears and uncertainties. With a darker tone, he spoke of his own family, his parents, his wife, and his children, and admitted he didn't know if they were safe. Yet he challenged his men to consider whether these fears were reasons to give up or abandon their beliefs. If we retreat now, we might die here, but we must remember what we are at our core, soldiers born to fight. This is war, and we must become stronger than the mutants, stronger than the world trying to crush us. Even if we die wearing our uniforms, smashing this place to pieces and embracing the final glory. His powerful words ignited a surge of courage within the soldiers. United in purpose and resolve, they began to chant with one voice, declaring that glory belonged to them. Zhong had a clear panoramic view of this rousing scene, even amidst the bleakness of the late apocalypse. He witnessed an unimaginable sense of collective honor among the soldiers. At that moment, Zhong felt a deep admiration and respect for the figures before him. Silently, he wished them good luck, though he remained uncertain about what was unfolding on the other side of the battlefield. Without warning, a thunderous crackle of electricity erupted from the riverbank, tearing through the tension in the air. Zhong's gaze shot upward as he witnessed the sudden opening of a dimensional gate. He was stunned, realizing immediately that the spatial black hole leading to the wastelands had opened. The treasure monster conch was more than a mere signal for summoning undead and mutated creatures from the surrounding area. it was also a beacon for powerful mutants from the wastelands. As the electric sound intensified, Zhong's dread grew as two crimson steel beasts began to take shape inside the swirling black hole. These were no ordinary creatures, they were level 2 monsters, and their arrival signaled disaster. As soon as they emerged, their eyes locked onto a soldier. In an instant, he was killed, his life snuffed out in a brutal flash. The crimson steel beast's eyes gleamed with twisted excitement as they growled menacingly, reveling in the chaos. The scene before Zhong was overwhelming, filled with deadly power and imminent danger. The stakes had escalated beyond anything he had anticipated. As the battlefield plunged into darkness, Zhong realized with a sinking heart that the real fight for survival had just begun. Moments later, a goat-like creature emerged from the black hole, a level 2 monster known as the Terror War Goat. Unlike a typical goat, it was a bloodthirsty fiend. Zhong rushed to the roof of the building, kicking open the door and scaling the stairs to the rooftop. Breathless, he surveyed the scene, his eyes fixed on the ominous black hole. To his alarm, the black hole began to churn once more, spewing out mutants smaller than the crimson steel beasts, level 1 mutants known as purple cloud war ants. Despite their lower level, their sheer numbers were unsettling. Zhong counted hundreds of them, feeling a surge of worry. He glanced at the dimensional gate, wondering what level of the wastelands it was connected to. The treasure monster continued to blow its horn, and Zhong's anxiety grew. The sudden influx of so many strong and troublesome monsters meant that dealing with them would be far from easy. Recalling his past experiences, Zhong knew that since the apocalypse began, not only had meteors fallen from the sky, but countless golden scent lights had struck the ground with devastating force. He remembered vague images of a monster dominion, a place teeming with creatures not native to Earth, where the very atmosphere could plunge humans into despair. It was a realm filled with bizarre flora, precious ores, and various resources, alongside many unknown treasures. As he continued to observe the dimensional gate, he braced himself for whatever would emerge next. To his horror, a hand reached out from the black hole, gripping a massive iron bar. The figure that emerged was grayish-black, entirely nude, and bearing sharp fangs. Zhong's heart sank as he realized it was a level 3 zombie ape, a far more formidable and dreadful adversary. In his past life, he had heard that humans typically evolve to level 3 in about 3 weeks, with the fastest record being just that. The appearance of such a high-level zombie before even 3 weeks had passed was inconceivable and deeply troubling. The zombie ape effortlessly demolished giant buildings as though they were toys. In front of this monstrous creature stood Lee's team. With a single massive hand, the zombie ape seized one of the men. The unfortunate individual had no chance to resist. The zombie ape tightened its grip, blood pouring from between its fingers and cascading down onto Lee's face. Lee looked on in stunned disbelief at the sheer number of beasts pouring into the area. Pooh, hidden atop AAR, observed the chaos. The radio crackled with Zhong's voice asking for the current location of the treasure monster. Pooh responded that it was still by the lake. Zhong then inquired about the colossal terror goat, wanting to know its whereabouts. Pooh informed him it was located to the left behind the Angshin building. Zhong instructed her to keep him updated on the terror goat's location and report any unusual activity. Switching positions by jumping from one building to another, Zhong told Lin to stay close. Pooh's update came through. The treasure monster was now wearing a purple sky warrant and moving along Pearl Lake. Zhong confirmed that the portal was not yet closed. Based on his past experiences, he knew the treasure monster could only blow the flute once to summon all the mutants. Since the flute had already stopped, he wondered why the abyss remained open. Confused and frustrated, he decided to set aside his questions. Without hesitation, he leaped to the ground and drew his moon blade. With a swift gust of wind, he beheaded 3 undead creatures and quickly snatched the magic crystals from their foreheads, ensuring no valuable crystals were wasted. Suddenly, a desperate cry for help pierced the chaos. Zhong turned his attention to the source of the sound and saw the terror goat attacking survivors. Though it was a level 2 monster, still 1 rank above him, it was one of the easier mutants to handle. Moreover, the terror goat had a yellow earth-colored fibrous material in its body, known to be a valuable young treasure. Feeling a surge of determination, Zhong charged directly at the terror goat. Using the momentum from his run, he pushed off the ground, propelling himself into the air. He spun mid-flight and landed forcefully on the terror goat's back with lightning speed. With lightning-fast reflexes, Zhong's wrists moved deftly as he drove his blade downward. The moon blade sliced through the terror goat's tough skin with precision and force, embedding deeply into its body. Zhong continued to stab relentlessly at the beast's back. Those who had fled earlier watched in stunned disbelief. They couldn't fathom how Zhong had managed to leap onto the monster's back and breach its defenses, especially considering that everyone involved was only a level 1 superhuman. The terror goat, enraged by the tiny human on its back, began to spin and jump violently in an attempt to shake Zhong off. Fully aware of the terror goat's intentions, Jong pressed his blade even deeper. The beast roared furiously, lifting its head high in a futile attempt to lessen the pain. Onlookers were astonished to see Jong's blade actually pierce the terror goat's body, while their own attacks had barely made a dent in its hide. Jong gripped his blade with all his might, struggling to stay in place and prevent being thrown off. The terror goat grew increasingly reckless, charging into a nearby building. The impact sent shards of glass and debris flying, causing Jong to sustain some injuries. Seeing that this tactic was effective, the terror goat became even more frenzied, rampaging wildly and smashing everything in its path. Eventually, the beast came to a halt, realizing that its strategy had succeeded in dealing with Jong. Understanding that staying on the terror goat's back was no longer viable, Jong pulled out his blade with all his strength, causing foul-smelling blood to spray from the wound. He quickly leapt down just as the terror goat's foot crashed down where he had just been. The beast fixed its fierce gaze on Jong, preparing for another attack. Gathering his strength, Jong readied himself for a decisive blow. He sprang into the air with agility, swinging his arm and driving his blade towards the terror goat's vital spot. Unlike its back, this area was devoid of bones and filled with soft, meaty tissue. The terror goat writhed in pain, flinging Jong away and charging at him with its massive horns, intent on finishing the fight. Jong, injured and with blood spraying from his mouth, managed a grim smile despite his pain. He knew the terror goat was on its last legs. The creature made a final, futile attempt to struggle before collapsing to the ground. The survivors who had secretly approached to witness the outcome were taken aback. Jong cast a cold glance at them. One of the middle-aged evolved individuals asked how Jong had managed to defeat the monster. Jong responded curtly, advising them that if they had decided to run earlier, they should have done so completely and not interfered. He pointed outside, making it clear that he did not welcome their presence and instructed them to leave immediately. The survivors' faces fell, their expressions sour. They insisted that while Jong had indeed killed the monster, they had also fought it earlier and claimed some credit. Jong gave a cold laugh, dismissing their claim. He retorted that they hadn't even managed to breach the monster's skin and yet had the audacity to claim credit. The survivors, feeling a mix of shame and anger, began to shout and point at Jong, expressing their frustration. They argued that such a high-ranked monster could be exchanged for valuable resources and questioned why they should just give up. Jong, however, had no intention of wasting time on them. He coldly instructed them to get lost. Despite being only a level 1 evolved, his reputation preceded him. He had already taken down numerous undead and mutants, instilling awe rather than anger among the group. The atmosphere shifted immediately, and their morale seemed to deflate. The man at the center of the group, authoritative and stern, warned Jong to be smart and leave. They were determined to take the item and, if necessary, deal with Jong harshly. The middle-aged man noticed Jong's injuries, his arm dangling uselessly, and advised him to think carefully before acting, stressing that rashness would only bring more harm. His tone was laced with genuine concern for Jong's safety. Meanwhile, a larger, more boisterous member of the group pointed out that the man in the center had killed someone just the day before. In the current chaotic times, where old laws no longer applied, killing had become more accepted. The group, now stirred up and aggressive, urged Jong to surrender the item willingly. Their message was clear: the choice was his, but resistance would come at a cost. Jong pulled out his radio, and Poo's voice crackled through with an urgent report. Numerous undead were advancing toward his location, and a small monster with a yellowish gold bag strapped to its back had stormed into a candy store where a squad of survivors had it surrounded. Jong understood immediately that the bag was today's main objective. He couldn't afford to let anyone else get their hands on it. Determined to retrieve the valuable item quickly and make a hasty exit, Jong faced the group. The group behind him, sensing his hesitation, demanded he leave behind his radio, blade, and anything else of value if he wanted to walk away unscathed. Jong turned to face them, eyes narrowing as he remarked on their insatiable greed. The man in the middle, however, was not interested in negotiating. He was ready to act first. In the wake of the apocalypse, the world had shifted drastically. People who once troubled or undermined him were now irrelevant. The girl who used to threaten his job had become a plaything, and the leader who once challenged his authority now groveled before him after he had crippled the man's daughter. With a steely resolve, he swung his weapon towards Jong, ready to assert his dominance and secure his power in this new reality. In the chaos of the harsh new world, a blinding flash of light cut through the turmoil. The middle-aged man's weapon slipped from his grasp and clattered to the ground. It took him agonizing seconds to react, his pained screams finally breaking the tense silence. Junk's voice pierced through the commotion: when you want to kill someone, remember that others might want to kill you too. With a swift kick, Jong sent the man sprawling into two of his companions. Their cries of agony filled the air as Jong seized the precious item and made his exit. The onlookers could only watch in stunned silence. Soon, a horde of undead emerged, and the group's fear became palpable. Desperate cries filled the air as they scrambled to confront the new threat. Inside a nearby building, the sharp, deafening crack of gunfire echoed as several guns concentrated their fire on the defense line. Chuno, after dealing with a pile of mutated rats outside, saw Mo return, visibly shaken and pale. He quickly inquired about what had happened, but Mo only muttered that the giant rats had been nauseating. Her concern shifted to Zay, who was anxiously looking around, clearly distressed by the uncertainty of her husband's whereabouts and safety. Seeing Mo's distress, Chuno reassured her that Xiaoqin was with the government division stationed in the newly opened district, an area with many buildings but few people and undead. It was also not far from the armored division barracks. He then shifted the conversation, asking Mo why she had just returned and mentioning that he needed to report to the team leader. Mo's thoughts turned to Zhong's resolute figure and their recent achievements. She was about to explain when Chunga's sudden shout cut her off. The noise they had made had attracted a massive monster. A few people rushed to the window and saw, with growing alarm, the enormous zombie ape charging directly toward the building. The sight of the monstrous creature made their earlier concerns about safety seem trivial in comparison. The armed police squad quickly adjusted their gun muzzles and began firing at the zombie ape, but soon realized their bullets had no impact on the creature. The realization hit them hard: if the beast made it downstairs, they would all be doomed. Chuno turned to Mo and urgently asked for her help in dealing with the zombie ape. Meanwhile, at the 3 o'clock position, Zay cried out as she unleashed flames from her flamethrower. Chuno and Xiaoqin joined her, their guns firing relentlessly to push back the mutated rat swarming in that direction. Chuno watched their struggle when, without warning, a grey arm reached in through the window from below, aiming to grab him. In a split second, Mo's arm shot out, swatting the undead's arm away just in time to save Chuno. But the undead retaliated, its sharp claws tearing into Mo's arm. The close encounter left everyone on edge, battling both the monstrous zombie ape and the relentless undead threatening their safety. Seeing the scene unfold, Chunga's heart sank. He furiously emptied his clip into the undead's head, his anger barely subsiding despite the relentless fire. Frustrated, he shouted at Mo, demanding to know what she was doing. Calmly, Mo assured him that she was fine and wouldn't be infected. The rest of the group's expressions shifted as they took in the situation. Silei, showing a determined resolve, drew a blade and prepared to cut off her own arm, believing that a disability was better than death. But Mo quickly intervened, stopping her. Mo then revealed the truth: she had taken evolution medicine and was fine. To prove her point, she showed them her wound, which had miraculously healed, and then punched the wall with such force that it cracked. Mo declared that she was now an evolver and had consumed evolutionary medicine, so they shouldn't worry about her. Her display left everyone stunned and speechless. Pointing out the window, Mo reminded them that the zombie ape was still advancing. After a moment of dazed silence, the group saw the massive creature drawing nearer. Instantly, they fired all available bullets at it, but normal ammunition had no effect. Then a burst of gunfire rang out, hitting the zombie ape's eyes. The bullets were from the special ammo Zhong had given her. The zombie ape roared in fury, clutching its injured eye and grabbing a nearby car to hurl at them. Mo's group quickly dropped to the floor, bracing themselves as the car flew through the air toward their position. At that moment, Zhong was in the midst of a conversation with Ling. She informed him that she had encountered a group of thugs and would need to deal with them before proceeding. Zhong asked if she was capable of handling the situation, and Ling assured him that they were not a significant challenge. He instructed her to seek out Teacher Pooh if the situation proved too difficult. As Zhong spoke, he saw several cars hurtling past between the buildings, their chaotic movement clearly the work of the enraged zombie ape. The creature was using every method at its disposal to vent its fury. Zhong was unaware that his first teammate, whom he had focused on after being revived, was facing a life-or-death struggle. His primary concern was ensuring he reached the treasure monster before others could snatch it away, and he hoped to reach Pearl Lake soon. Zhong, still nursing injuries from his recent battles, felt a pressing need for a healer on his team. In the apocalypse, many survivors didn't perish from combat but from missing the crucial window for treatment. Medicines were a rare luxury, far more valuable than food and water, and healers were highly sought after. Having just one pharmacist on his team would allow him to fight at full strength without holding back. He regarded her with keen interest. Despite his words, he made his way to the street leading to Pearl Lake's road, determined to navigate past the small monster ahead. The leader of the thugs blocking Liang's path warned her of the dangers ahead, advising that she would be safer staying with them. As he thought about Captain Ya, who had provided him with weapons, evolution medicine, and even a squad, but had taken away a valuable card from the wheel, he knew that card was worth far more than the medicine. It was clear that Captain YA had used him as cannon fodder. Yet, this woman intrigued him. Ha wasn't interested in Liang's appearance, but rather in the evolved aura surrounding her, her unusual weapon, and the fact that her earlier phone call had been to someone else. All these clues indicated she was part of a squad and, despite her strength, she wasn't even the leader. Seeing Liang's unwavering resolve, he decided to let her go but demanded she share how she had become so strong. Liang's frustration with the group was palpable. She recounted her past life, a life filled with struggle and exhaustion, where she felt like a sheep among predators until the apocalypse came and wiped out those who tormented her. The world had changed dramatically. Even though she faced constant danger, she had never felt so liberated and refreshed. She considered herself fortunate to have met a man who, despite his strictness, truly cared about her well-being. Zhong had taught her how to become stronger and survive in this harsh new world. For the first time in years, she felt she could truly rely on someone. Now, seeing Zhong in grave danger while this group impeded her progress, her face hardened with determination. She cracked her whip, giving the thugs an ultimatum: either they could get out of her way, or they would face dire consequences. At a nearby newspaper stand, Zhong crouched low, trying to keep himself hidden. Captain YA's military squad was advancing down the road, and Zhong could see purple ants pouring out of a black hole in the middle of the street, ready to attack the soldiers. The total assault had begun. Captain YA's command rang out: "Kill them instantly!" The army's firepower unleashed a torrent of bullets toward the advancing ants. The first wave of gunfire had a clear impact, and the soldiers' morale surged as they saw their initial efforts paying off. Hiding behind the newsstand, Zhong shook his head, recognizing that these soldiers were in for a harsh reality check. The giant ants quickly regrouped and counterattacked. They stood upright, almost human-like, and began spraying streams of corrosive green liquid from their mouths. The areas where the liquid landed began to dissolve rapidly, causing agonized screams from the soldiers as their weapons melted into blackened, smoking wreckage. Zhong, concealed on the side, weighed the decision of whether to assist the beleaguered soldiers. But as he watched Captain YA standing atop a vehicle with a cold, indifferent gaze, his resolve hardened. He sneered and decided to head straight for Pearl Lake without further delay. As Zhong dashed away, Captain YA noticed him, his eyes narrowing with a cold, dismissive snort. Zhong rounded a corner and arrived at Pearl Lake, quickly scanning the area for the lakeside candy booth. He spotted two ants surrounding a wooden house, confirming he was in the right place. Just as Zhong moved closer, a horn blared, and his expression shifted in alarm. The giant black hole on the lake suddenly expanded dramatically. Zhong couldn't believe what he was seeing. The little monster was opening a dimensional portal for the second time. Amidst the blaring horn, a massive, menacing creature slowly emerged from the dark void. The sight was both shocking and foreboding, escalating the urgency of his mission. The creature emerging from the black hole was an unsettling sight. Its entire body was covered in a deep crimson, and it had three thick, crude legs both in the front and back, giving it a grotesque, unnatural appearance. Its forearms, similarly grotesque, grew directly from its shoulders and flanks. The creature was wrapped in heavy pitch-black iron chains, which clanked with every movement. On its head, a single blue horn flickered rhythmically as if breathing. His eyes widened in shock as he recognized the monster. It was the Chain Prisoner, a notorious being that had become increasingly powerful since the apocalypse began. This creature had broken through the wasteland's fortress and emerged into the outside world. Now it bore a level 4 green magic crystal embedded in its forehead, marking it as one of the first level 9 mutants humanity had ever encountered. Before humanity had any level 9 superhumans, the Chain Prisoner was the undisputed terror, roaming aimlessly, leaving a path of destruction in its wake, obliterating survivor bases, and wreaking havoc wherever it went. It wasn't until humanity also developed level 9 superhumans that a trio of these powerful beings was able to bring it down. That battle became legendary, known as the battle where Shin earned the title of the Slaughter Rose. The enormity of the situation now before Zhong was clear. This was a confrontation with a creature that had once been a symbol of unparalleled terror. Zhong assessed his own capabilities. Thanks to the evolution medicine and crocodile meat, he was much stronger than the average level 1 evolved. His expertise and knowledge of the apocalypse allowed him to handle level 2 mutants with relative ease. However, facing a rank 4 monster like the Chain Prisoner would be suicidal, so he decided against engaging it directly. He swiftly moved between the two purple ants outside the candy store. With precise strikes, he tore through their bodies, retrieved the crystals embedded in their foreheads, and removed their sharpest toes. His primary focus now was to locate and seize the treasure monster with the coveted bag on its back. Jong kicked open the store's door with a single powerful blow. Inside, the scene was chaotic, littered with corpses that hinted at a fierce battle having taken place. At that moment, Jong realized he had lost contact with the two women. His radio emitted only static, heightening his sense of unease as he wondered what could have happened. Just then, a gunshot rang out from the back door. There, CEO Lee was commanding his troops, their guns firing relentlessly. He held a radio in his hand, urgently requesting reinforcements from Captain Ya. CEO Lee had observed earlier that the treasure monster had pulled a bottle of evolution medicine from its bag. The medicine from its bag was splashed onto the monster, a potentially crucial prize for the day. With a bullet wound on its shoulder, the treasure monster emitted a strange, unsettling cry. CEO Lee, now electrified with excitement, directed his team to come up with strategies to subdue the monster atop the purple ant's body. The stakes were high, and securing the treasure monster's bag was vital. Suddenly, Jong burst onto the scene with remarkable speed. The troops, caught off guard, scrambled to raise their weapons, but Jong was too quick. His precise punches landed before they could even pull their triggers. CEO Lee barely had time to lift his weapon before Jong was upon him, delivering a powerful elbow strike to his chest. With the military gun now in his possession, Jong noted that Captain Ya had seemingly abandoned all military support for this operation. His resolve intensified as he forcefully stomped his foot, propelling himself urgently towards the treasure monster. He knew that securing the bag before others arrived was crucial. Meanwhile, CEO Lee, realizing the gravity of the situation, grabbed his radio and urgently contacted Captain Y. He reported that the treasure was within reach and warned that if Captain Y didn't act swiftly, others would claim it. The urgency in his voice underscored the high stakes of the operation as everyone raced to secure the prized bag. Jong pressed on relentlessly, finally spotting the treasure monster by a lake near the plaza. The creature had dismounted from the monster ant and was now leisurely gnawing on a chicken leg it had scavenged. Jong observed that the monster's previously wounded shoulder had fully healed, looking as good as new. Suddenly, the treasure monster's gaze shifted toward Jong, halting its gnawing and emitting a low, menacing growl. At the sound, two nearby purple ants charged at Jong. To his surprise, these ants were not ordinary, they were level 2 generals. Typically, purple ants were level 1 mutants, generals were level 2, kings were level 3, and queens were level 4 or higher. One of the generals sprayed a corrosive liquid toward him, setting up an ambush. Jong quickly ducked, narrowly avoiding the spray. The general then spread its transparent wings and began to lift off the ground. Anticipating its next move, Jong swiftly shifted his blade from his right hand to his left and executed a powerful slash. The blade sliced through the wings, severing them from the body. The general, thrown off balance by the strike, crashed to the ground, a torrent of greenish liquid spilling out. Seizing the opportunity, Jong drove his blade into the general's head, ensuring its death. He then extracted the crystal from its forehead. With the general dispatched, Jong glanced back at the treasure monster, still absorbed in its chicken leg. The creature remained oblivious to the unfolding battle, granting Jong a brief respite as he prepared for his next move. The treasure monster's chicken leg tumbled to the ground as it stared at Jong in disbelief. Panic overtook the creature, which frantically looked around and began to shriek loudly. Jong, focused on his plan, moved in with the intent to behead the monster and claim the yellowish gold bag for himself. Just as he was about to strike, the treasure monster reached into its bag and pulled out an item, hurling it toward Jong. Jong braced for an attack, but as the item neared, he realized it was a scroll. He caught it with his free hand and unrolled it, discovering it was a beginner summon spell. Jong was pleasantly surprised. Such a skill scroll, especially a well-known summoning skill, was a rare find in the apocalypse. Without hesitation, Jong gripped the scroll tightly and prepared to learn its secrets. The treasure monster watched in stunned silence as Jong's actions rendered its previous efforts futile. In a desperate move, the treasure monster tossed another scroll toward Jong. This one was a promotion scroll, an item Jong had paid dearly for in his past life, now discarded as though worthless. His interest in these items grew. He asked the treasure monster if it had any more valuable items, or else he would proceed to kill it. Faced with Jong's threat, the monster quickly produced two more items. One appeared to be level 1 evolution medicine, and the other was a profession certificate. Jong opened the certificate and was astonished to find it read, "Congratulations, you have obtained the profession of gardener." The absurdity of the situation left Jong speechless. What was once a highly sought-after item now seemed almost inconsequential, yet he couldn't help but appreciate the unexpected windfall. With these new developments, Jong was both intrigued and determined to continue his pursuit of the treasure monster, eager to see what else it might have to offer. A gunshot rang out, drawing attention. Shirao, intrigued, asked Mo about the type of gun she was using and how it managed to hurt the monster. Chung, observing her enjoyment in the fight, finally understood why Mo had left the team for a while. The precise shot had struck the zombie ape's right knee, tearing through the grey skin and exposing the blackened kneecap underneath. The teammates looked on in astonishment, shifting their gaze between the injured zombie ape and the rifle in Mo's hands. Jong had provided Mo with evolution medicine bullets and this powerful weapon. Despite her impressive contributions, Mo felt that such an expensive reward was more than she deserved. Jong was the one she believed truly earned it. She explained to her teammates that some things were beyond imagination and almost mythical. She promised to reveal more about her newfound strength and the origin of her weapons if they survived the encounter. The formidable power of her gun had forced the zombie ape to pause, lowering its head to inspect the wound. A furious roar directed at Mo, witnessing the zombie ape's renewed aggression. Mo ordered her team to focus their fire on the wound. Just then, someone entered the scene, instructing the shooter to join Director Lu's team. After a moment, the official noticed that everyone was fixated on Mo. Sensing this, Mo urged her teammates to assist her in attacking the zombie ape's right knee. Her team members swiftly aimed their guns at the target, seemingly ignoring the official's previous directive. As Mo prepared to resume her attack, the official reached out from behind, drawn to the peculiar nature of her gun. Annoyed by the interruption, Mo elbowed him in the chest in protest. The official reprimanded her, suspecting that her gun might have been acquired through dubious means. He insisted on stopping her to inspect the weapon, adding an unexpected complication to the already tense situation. Mo was fiercely determined to protect everyone's lives. She glared at the official, demanding he leave immediately. She made it clear that she had no intention of joining Director Lu's team and warned him not to bother her again or she would kill him. Her outburst left everyone startled. The official, fuming with anger, shouted that Mo was disobeying orders and would face disciplinary action. In response, Mo decisively fired a shot at the wall just beside his ear, using the threat to force him to turn and leave. Changgu and the others were taken aback by Mo's rash behavior, but couldn't deny the effectiveness of her actions. They wondered if she would be able to stay with the team in the future. Mo, however, was adamant about her intention to leave the police force. She bluntly told them that, aside from her teammates, there was nothing worth keeping her there. Mo expressed her disillusionment, questioning whether they truly understood the purpose of their relentless struggle and what they would ultimately gain from it. Her behavior had seemed odd since her return, but now it was clear. Mo revealed the harsh truth that they were being used as cannon fodder for Captain Ye. While Captain Ye could seize the treasure, the rest of them, apart from making sacrifices, would only receive evolution medicine for his wife and child. The revelation left everyone in disbelief, their sense of reality shaken by the stark truth Mo had laid bare. Jong was taken aback to find that his second profession was gardener. Although it wasn't what he had expected, he recognized some similarities between gardeners and artisans. Both professions boasted multiple skills beyond the standard set. There were two main abilities associated with gardeners. The first was cultivation, the skill to plant seeds and accelerate their growth with remarkable speed and efficiency, leading to extraordinary results. The second skill was activation, the power to control plants and use them to accomplish various tasks. Jong recalled an encounter with a formidable sycamore tree in his past life, an evolution of which was so powerful that even the strongest factions dared not approach it. He felt a surge of excitement at the thought of commanding mutated plants, imagining the advantages of growing food and producing resources in the apocalypse. Eager to see if the treasure monster had anything else to offer, he asked for more. In response, the treasure monster tossed another item toward him. As he reached out to grab it, a sudden sense of danger made him wary. He instinctively dodged just as the item hit the ground and exploded with a loud boom. As the smoke began to clear, a glowing green venomous monster emerged from the haze. It had no crystal on its forehead and was clearly a summoned creature. The blue aura surrounding it radiated intense corrosive properties, making it a formidable opponent. Jong hesitated to draw his blade, fearing it might get damaged. Instead, he quickly plunged his hand into the fountain beside him. As his hand submerged, the water began to bubble and froth, and within seconds, a human-shaped water elemental emerged. The elemental unleashed a powerful stream of water at the glowing venomous monster, and the two creatures clashed fiercely in a chaotic battle. This was a result of his basic skill transference. The summoning was limited to just 1 minute, so he knew he needed to act fast for a decisive victory. Bewildered by his sudden move, the treasure monster glanced at him with disbelief before attempting to flee. However, it only made it a few steps before running straight into Lee's group. His sinister laugh filled the air as he declared, "Kill them." His subordinates immediately opened fire, their bullets tearing through the air. Jong, agile and quick, darted behind a nearby sculpture, feeling a surge of frustration. He couldn't avoid the gunfire and was deeply reluctant to see the treasure monster fall into Lee's hands. With the enemy's magazine running low, he seized his chance. He pulled out a pistol and, with precise aim, took down 2 of Lee's men in a single dive. The remaining fighters scattered in fear, seeking cover. Taking advantage of the chaos, Jong charged towards the treasure monster. Amidst the gunfire, he reached the monster, seized it, and swiftly grabbed the prize. In that intense moment, he experienced the most profound emotional upheaval since his revival. Every time he had scrambled for treasure mutants in his past life, the fights had been brutal, with death rate soaring above 60%. The victorious few had always treated the treasure mutants as nothing more than a minor nuisance. Today, he was poised to be the victor. But suddenly, a chilling premonition swept over him. Jong reacted instantly, dodging to the side. A split second later, he saw a flash of movement. The monster let out a chilling shriek as its jaws snapped shut, barely missing its target. He narrowly dodged a savage attack, but if he hadn't moved in time, that severed arm would have been his. As he glanced around, his heart sank. 3 evolved humans had arrived, attacking with ruthless efficiency. Clearly adapted to the apocalypse, they fought with a brutality he hadn't anticipated. Ignoring their warnings, he grabbed the yellowish gold bag and clutched it tightly, but beams of light-speed spears shot towards him, forcing him to pull back. A long spear came dangerously close to his face. If his right hand hadn't been injured, he might have fended off the attack. But facing 3 evolved humans at once was too risky. Reluctantly, he retreated, kicking the treasure monster away, surprising the trio. They hadn't expected him to risk his life to protect the bag. Lee, seeing the opportunity, quickly informed Wong that the target was right before them. Wong smirked, clearly pleased with the turn of events. The leader, fuming with anger, cursed Jong and ordered his men to focus on grabbing the bag first, ignoring Jong's presence. Wong instructed his partner to secure the treasure while he created a diversion. A fierce battle ensued, turning the area into a chaotic mess of water and debris. The next step was to seize the opportunity and capture the treasure. Wong's team knew they had to wait for the perfect moment to make their move and maximize their chances. The situation with Mo was deteriorating rapidly. The zombie ape had a horde of undead blocking the area in front of the building, making it impossible for Mo to get a clear shot. With only 1 bullet left and threatened by Jong, her options were running thin. Overwhelmed by the thought of her efforts being wasted, Mo grappled with her next move. Just then, she saw a familiar figure rushing towards her, Pooh. If Pooh was here, Jong couldn't be far away. With renewed determination, Mo leapt out of the window. Chung, unable to stop her, could only watch in alarm as she made her daring escape. The reunion between Mo and Pooh was filled with relief and emotion. Before they could fully exchange words, a deafening roar drew their attention. Atop a skyscraper, a monstrous fish face emerged, the chained prisoner. The sight was both horrifying and awe-inspiring, a grim reminder of the chaos about to unfold. Seeing Mo leap out of the window with such resolve, Chung was left puzzled. Chang'ong and Shou exchanged determined glances before immediately jumping down to follow her. Chung and Zhe were left frozen, their thoughts racing. Just then, footsteps echoed from outside the door. The secretary, who had previously fled in panic, had returned with reinforcements in search of Mo. Both Chung and Zhe argued that these soldiers would be far more useful in the battle rather than turning against their own. Determined to retrieve Mo, Chung decided to follow the path the others had taken. Sil admired Cha and his determination but longed to join them. Her thoughts were with her husband, waiting for their reunion. Realizing their situations were different, she reluctantly stayed behind. Meanwhile, the towering and terrifying chain prisoner loomed ominously atop the high-rise. Pooh informed Mo that the last time she saw Jong was near that monster. Mo's face tightened with concern, resolute in her desire to find him, hoping he was unharmed. The sight of the monster was formidable, but Pooh pulled Mo's hand, urging her to focus on rescuing Ling, who was in immediate danger. While Mo was deeply concerned about Jong's situation, Pooh assessed the situation and concluded that Jong was likely searching for something rather than provoking the monster. She suggested focusing on rescuing Ling first and then returning to find Jong. Mo, though still worried, gritted her teeth and agreed. Just then, Chang'ong, Shou, and Chung arrived, having followed Mo's lead. They recognized the urgency and understood the need to act swiftly. Mo's eyes brightened at their arrival. With skilled warriors by her side, she felt confident they could make a difference. She instructed Pooh to lead the way and emphasized the need to rescue Ling first. Meanwhile, Ling was in dire straits, surrounded by the mangled remains of her fallen foes. She panted heavily, a painful wound bleeding on her chest. She wiped the blood from her mouth, reflecting on the brutal reality of combat. The thug boss, nursing his injured arm, sneered and ordered his men to target her legs, intent on incapacitating her even if it meant leaving her crippled. The thugs, now intent on killing, raised their guns and prepared to open fire. In a desperate bid for survival, Ling used her whip to shield herself with the body of one of the attackers. Just as the situation seemed dire, a voice cut through the chaos. Mo and her team charged in, driving the thugs back. The boss, confused and alarmed by the sudden intervention, demanded to know who they were. Before he could react further, Mo arrived, her fury evident. She landed a powerful punch, knocking him out before he could fully comprehend the threat. Mo and her team quickly took control of the situation, rescuing Ling from the brink of disaster. Zhong observed the clash between the two formidable forces with detached calm. The man before him, already an imposing figure, seemed to grow even more powerful with each vigorous movement. His eyes narrowed. This was no ordinary opponent. This individual belonged to a rare and formidable profession known for its incredible strength. In his past life, Chong Mao had been part of such a specialized group. These three adversaries, who had faced and survived level 1 monsters, had now encountered level 3 threats, making them a significant challenge for him. Their luck had been extraordinary, propelling them from ordinary level 1 evolved humans to powerful figures facing high-level threats. His thoughts were interrupted by the sudden appearance of soldiers, including a level 2 evolved human, a rare sight that surprised him. Although he was accustomed to seeing such caliber in a professional capacity, the timing was notable. A twinge of envy flickered within him. Despite being a reincarnator, he remained only a level 1 evolved human. The presence of level 2 evolved humans and the extraordinary abilities of his opponents made him re-evaluate his strategy. The situation was more complex than he had anticipated, and he needed to adapt quickly to survive and possibly turn the tide in his favor. Wong, despite acquiring a level 2 wheel, was frustrated by the lack of level 2 mutated monsters available to fight. Even if such monsters were present, he questioned whether he could defeat them effectively. This uncertainty weighed heavily on him. Meanwhile, Chong Mao relentlessly attacked Wong, with a combination of precision and ruthless moves. As a girl unleashed a beam of light from her hand, Wong instinctively recognized the threat. Faced with simultaneous attacks, Wong was forced to confront his dire situation. Faced with a difficult choice, Wong decided to endure a wound from Chong Mao's assault rather than risk a more severe injury from the incoming light beam. His quick reflexes minimized the severity of the wound, but it still caused him significant pain. The unexpected outcome momentarily threw Chong Mao off balance. Seizing the opportunity, Wong clenched his fist and delivered a powerful punch that sent Chong Mao crashing through the air. Enraged, the leader prepared to confront the attackers directly. His voice rang out, declaring that the attackers had brought their misfortune upon themselves by coming there. With a swift motion, Wong discarded the long spear, which whistled through the air with deadly precision. The spear flew towards the girl who had unleashed the dangerous beam of light. Despite her best efforts to evade it, the spear struck her left chest with brutal force, leaving her incapacitated and bleeding. Wong's ruthless efficiency highlighted the grim reality of their situation. There was no room for mercy in this high-stakes battle. As Wong prepared to confront the struggling leader, he suddenly noticed a change in the situation amidst the chaos. Seizing the opportunity, he dashed for it, clutching the bag tightly. Wong's expression shifted from focus to annoyance as he saw Zhong trying to escape. With a mix of irritation and grudging respect, Wong acknowledged Zhong's skill in evading the others and issued a challenge. As Wong sprinted away, he pondered how he might lose Zhong, who was hot on his heels. The ground suddenly rumbled beneath him, causing Zhong to glance up in surprise. To his dismay, he realized he had run straight into the chained prisoner's territory. The dense smoke billowing from the massive creature created an obscuring haze. With a determined grin, Zhong plunged into the smoke, hoping to use it as cover. Wong, unfazed, followed him into the swirling mist without hesitation. In the obscured battlefield, Zhong tried to gauge Wong's strength, feeling the pressure of facing a level 2 evolved human. Despite his best efforts, his blade only managed to graze Wong's clothing. Wong's nimble dodging had prevented any serious injury. Frustrated by the ineffective attack, Wong glanced down at his torn clothes. Decisively, he ripped the fabric further, revealing a fierce transformation. On Wong's robust chest was a striking tattoo of a black skull, marking him as a formidable level 2 evolved human. The sight of the tattoo, known as the Black Spirit Soul Devourer, confirmed Zhong's realization of Wong's enhanced abilities. This revelation underscored the gravity of their confrontation and the sheer power Wong wielded.